Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. Konoha. Travel through ninja world and open treasure chests. Chapter 21. As a rare genius in the Uchiha clan, one of the few ninjas who could rise to fame in peacetime, graduate quickly and be promoted to Chunin, Uchiha Itachi's strength was beyond doubt. Even though he is still young, only 8 years old, he already has the strength of an elite Chunin. In addition, when he left the village to perform tasks, his hands were stained with the blood of many enemies, and the murderous aura condensed invisibly was enough to frighten ordinary people. Bai Mingyu was struck by his momentum, and his breathing stagnated slightly before he gradually calmed down. And Itachi had already begun to form seals. The movements of the hands are very fast. Following a series of seal movements that were almost invisible to the naked eye, a cold voice sounded in Bai Mingyu's ears: Fire Release Phoenix Immortal Fire Technique. 4 or 5 flame balls were spit out from Itachi's mouth one after another, like impatiens flying out of the air, spreading out from all directions and attacking Bai Mingyu. These flame balls are controlled by the caster's chakra and are more difficult to avoid than the giant fireball technique. Compared to Itachi's decisive attack, Bai Mingyu's reaction was a little slower than half a beat before he stamped heavily on the ground with his soles and hid to one side. At the same time, he made a virtual fist with his right hand and grabbed Sota Shirayuki, who quietly emerged from the air. The hilt was trampled on, leaving clear footprints on the ground. Immediately afterwards, Bai Mingyu made a false strike with his sword, and a string of ice picks was shot towards Itachi. Now that you've been hit, no matter whether you can beat him or not, there's no reason to sit still and wait for death. Bai Mingyu's reaction was obviously beyond Itachi's expectations, but his response was also very straightforward. He immediately took out the kunai from his waist, waved it vigorously a few times, and the black light blocked all the ice picks, and then leaned over, rushed forward, throwing kunai and shurikens while running. Kunai collided with each other in midair, constantly refracted and changed direction, intertwining into a huge net. Stabs came from Bai Mingyu's head, back, sides, and all directions. While launching the offensive, it also blocked Bai Mingyu's attack route. No matter which angle he continued to charge forward or retreat from, he was bound to be cut by kunai. As expected of Itachi, this dazzling shuriken throwing operation is far beyond the level of ninja school students like Uchiha Izumi and Hinata Ryota. Facing the large network of kunai, Bai Mingyu concentrated, his pupils shrank into lines like a cat, and his half-animal transformation ability was raised to the limit. While in midair, he suddenly made a dexterous movement that humans could not achieve. He almost bent his entire body 180 degrees, barely avoiding the direction of the blade, and then stretched out his hand and spread his palm. Blowing fire palm. A gust of wind passed by, and the kunai in the sky were blown away one by one. Immediately afterwards, Bai Mingyu landed, his blade sweeping across. The first dance of the white moon. A touch of frost burst out from the sword and spread quickly. In the blink of an eye, there were fluttering snowflakes within a radius of 10 meters, as if the world was divided into 2 halves out of thin air. It was hot summer outside, but it was cold winter inside. Weird ninjutsu. The frost spread towards Itachi. Faced with this incredible phenomenon, Itachi was stunned for a moment, but his extremely high combat literacy forced him to calm down immediately and form seals with his hands again. The technique of fire release and fire balls. Pong. Bang bang. 3 huge flame spheres were spat out from the mouth in succession, covering an area even larger than the first dance of the moon. The blazing air waves could not be offset by even ice and snow. Bai Mingyu swung his sword repeatedly, and more cold air was released from the zanpakudo, opening it like a huge palm. Ice palm. The cold air and the fireball met in the air. Under the agitation of the 2 forces, one cold and one hot, high-temperature ice and water vapor continued to form in midair, splashing around. Uchiha Itachi turned over and jumped away, taking advantage of both sides. When his vision was blocked, he closed and opened his eyes. When he opened them again, the black eyes had turned red, and the 2 magatama were clearly visible in the pupils. Sharingan, open. In the brief battle, Itachi had discovered that ordinary ninjutsu could not defeat his opponent, so he decisively opened his Sharingan and used the genjutsu that the Uchiha clan is best at. The art of Naraku seeing. When Bai Mingyu saw the Sharingan, he had closed his eyes subconsciously. However, he still felt that scarlet scenes appeared in front of him, as if he was trapped in a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. Everything that entered his eyes was blood red. Illusion. For Bai Mingyu, who has not systematically learned how to solve illusions, illusions are originally his biggest weakness, and the Sharingan has a great amplifying effect on illusions. He was accidentally hit by Itachi's illusions, and the chakra in his body it immediately became chaotic, and its ability to sense the surroundings was also rapidly fading. Suffered. Bai Mingyu realized that something was wrong, and he was heartbroken. While his hands could still move, he slashed himself with a knife. The severe pain and the bone-chilling coldness as the blade sank into his body made Bai Mingyu tremble, and he broke free from the illusion. To deal with ordinary illusions, if you don't know the specific solution, self-mutilation is actually a way to solve the illusion. Severe pain can cause people to become highly tense, thus breaking away from the disorienting effects of illusions. However, most people who are under the influence of illusions are in a state of confusion with their five senses, and it is difficult to accurately judge their physical condition. Maybe they originally wanted to stab the thigh, but ended up stabbing into the heart. Even if they wake up from the illusion, people will die too. Therefore, few ninjas would take the initiative to use this method to break away from genjutsu unless necessary. However, Bai Mingyu is different. The Lion King's recovery effect can work even if the heart is pierced, so as long as the head is not cut off directly from the neck, there are almost no injuries that can cause his death in the half-animal state. It only took a second for the illusion to be broken. Bai Mingyu opened his eyes suddenly, slashed open the kunai that was stabbing him, then took a few steps back, regained distance from Itachi, and watched the latter warily. Quote, Itachi frowned. After a brief hesitation, he lowered his body and pulled out the kunai from his waist again. Although I don't know who you are very strong to be able to do this. I am over-flattered. Bai Mingyu responded casually, but his eyes were looking around. Although the pressure Itachi brought to him was not small, the greater pressure still came from a person who had not shown up yet. While looking around, the tree not far away on the left suddenly became distorted, and soon a figure quietly emerged. Are you looking for me? He has slightly curly short black hair, wears an Anbu vest uniform, and has a round nose. He looks a few years older than Itachi, with a gentle smile on his face. Uchiha Shisui. Like Itachi, Uchiha Shisui is also a rare genius in the Uchiha clan. When he was less than 10 years old, he participated in the Third Ninja World War between Konoha and the Four Great Nations, and gained a great reputation on the Kurigakure battlefield, becoming famous in the ninja world with the title Shunshin Shisui. He is also the owner of the most powerful Genjutsu Baidenjin, and is regarded as a brother by Itachi. Whether it is observation ability, perception ability, or various comprehensive strength, it far exceeds that of the still young Itachi. Bai Mingyu and Itachi had been fighting for a long time just now, but Ji Shui never showed up, which even gave him the illusion that Ji Shui had left. Unexpectedly, this guy had been hiding around and watching, and didn't show up until now. There is Weasel in front and Shisui behind. Even if the third-generation Hokage, Sarutobi Hiruzen, is standing here, facing this lineup, I'm afraid it will be difficult. Well, is it too late for me to surrender now? Itachi and Shisui obviously didn't understand Bai Mingyu's words. But the appearance of Shisui still made Itachi relax a little, and his vigilance relaxed a little, and the kunai in his hand was no longer so tight. Just then, Bai Mingyu returned his hand and put Shu Baishui back into the scabbard behind his back. When he opened his hand again, there was already a dusty cloak in his hand. Under the gazes of Itachi and Shisui, they saw him shaking off his cloak, covering his head, and then, what about people? Even Itachi with such a paralyzed face couldn't help but look confused at this moment. He opened his mouth in surprise and looked at the empty ground in front of him. If it weren't for the fact that there were a lot of ice and snow around him that hadn't melted away, as well as the trees burned by the Go Fireball technique, reminding him of the brief and fierce battle that had just happened here, Itachi would have almost thought he was living in a dream. Even Shisui looked at this scene with surprise and horror in his heart. Is this a ninjutsu that makes people disappear into thin air? Compared to the young Itachi now, Uchiha Shisui was much more knowledgeable. After a brief moment of shock, he quickly calmed down and had several guesses in his mind. It's not that there aren't any techniques that can make people disappear out of thin air. In addition to the simplest instant technique, there are also many weird techniques. Not many of them can hide from 2 pairs of Sharingan, but there are a few. If it is the Flying Thunder God, it is indeed possible to achieve this step, but after the fall of the 4th Hokage, no ninja in Konoha can use the Flying Thunder God alone. Even if there are ninjutsu of similar nature, it is difficult for anyone to achieve the level of Golden Flash. And when did this kind of bloodline limit appear in Konoha? Looking at the remaining ice chips on the ground, Jesui secretly murmured in his heart, what was the background of the seemingly young child just now? The other side, Bai Mingyu's center of gravity sank, his limbs bent to the ground like a cat, and he silently walked away from Jesui and Itachi. This is a very strange picture. Because the distance between Bai Mingyu and the 2 of them was only more than 10 meters, they could almost reach out and touch each other. However, both Jesui and Itachi seemed to have noticed nothing, watching Bai Mingyu pass by them. There was still a suspicious look on his face. They really couldn't see Bai Mingyu. Congratulations to the host for opening the silver treasure chest and obtaining invisibility cloak. The invisibility cloak is one of the items in Doraemon's treasure chest. If you cover your head with the cloak, your body will disappear. When he first took this thing out of the bronze treasure chest, Bai Mingyu was still a little confused. He couldn't think of any use for this thing besides spying on the women's bathhouse. It was probably the favorite of the lustful immortal Jiraiya. Unexpectedly, it took effect so quickly. After hiding his body with the invisibility cloak, Bai Mingyu quietly left Itachi and Shisui with the help of feline dexterity. Even these 2 masters of the Uchiha clan did not find anyone slipping away from under their noses in this way. After running like this until outside the Uchiha clan's residence, Bai Mingyu found a hidden corner, lifted off his invisibility cloak, and his figure was revealed under the streetlight again. It's so exciting to pretend to compete and then run away. Bai Mingyu took a long breath. After the nervousness subsided, it was replaced by fear. When he fought Itachi just now, he didn't think so much about it, but now that he thinks about it, he has used more than half of his trump cards before, including Fire Palm, Half Animal State, and Soda Shirayuki's abilities. And Itachi also demonstrated the 3 abilities of Fire Ninjutsu, Shuriken Jutsu, and Sharingan Genjutsu. Although the fighting was brief, both sides had already shown their true abilities. If the fight continues, Bai Mingyu is likely to be hit again by Itachi's Sharingan illusion. But these are not critical issues. The key is, Soda no Shirayuki's Ice Escape Blood Succession Limit ability is unique in Konoha. Although Bai Mingyu has not shown this ability in front of too many people, the Hyuga clan, the 3rd generation, and the Anbu all know about it. Once traced, his identity is likely to be exposed. It was a miscalculation. When I was discovered by Itachi, I should have just put on the invisibility cloak and escaped. Bai Mingyu rubbed his temples, with an uncertain expression on his face. But things had already happened, and there was no point in regretting it. All I could do was have some luck and hope that Itachi and Shisui wouldn't track him down. After finally settling down in Konoha village, Bai Mingyu didn't want to be driven away so soon. I should be able to dodge it. Quote, in the classroom. The Chunin teacher was giving a lecture with spittle, and the blackboard was already filled with dense writing. Below, Bai Mingyu looked down at the textbook, a little absent-mindedly. From time to time, he would peek at the seat next to him and hesitate to speak. Mr. Bai Yu, what's wrong? Uchiha Izumi felt a little flustered, and finally couldn't help but quietly touched Bai Mingyu with his elbow, and asked in a low voice, you have been distracted since just now, is there anything you want to ask me? Bai Mingyu scratched his head and said hesitantly, actually, it's nothing. It's just Izumi. Has anything worthy of concern happened to your Uchiha clan recently? For example, have there been any rumors about the Konoha security force, or has Itachi had any relationship with you? What did you say? What? Uchiha Izumi was confused when he heard this. I don't understand what you are talking about. And what do these things have to do with Itachi-kun? Since Itachi-kun graduated early, I rarely see him again. Bai Mingyu paid attention to Quan's expression, it didn't look like he was faking it. A little girl of 8 or 9 years old really has no intention of making a fuss about it. After all, not every Uchiha tribesman is like Obito, who immediately becomes a dramatist as soon as he puts on the mask. If the Hokage chooses the best actor, Brother Obito will definitely be on the list. Famous. This is a bit strange. Haven't Itachi and Shisui announced their appearance to the clan yet? Or is it that the Uchiha clan already knows about this, but they don't want to tell the Anbu the news, but are secretly sending people to investigate his true identity? Bai Mingyu held his chin and thought. Since there was no movement from the Uchiha side, he had no choice but to suppress it for the time being and pretend that nothing happened. He went to the ninja school as usual and went to the training ground outside Konoha to practice for 2 hours every morning and evening to improve his skill proficiency. In the evening, he went to the house next door to have dinner. His life was very comfortable. After gradually adapting to the school's curriculum, Bai Mingyu also began to study ninjutsu. Strictly speaking, ninja schools do not teach ninjutsu other than basic ninjutsu. The so-called basic ninjutsu refers to the E-level ninjutsu including the 3-body technique plus the rope-breaking technique and escape technique, as well as several relatively simple auxiliary D-level ninjutsu. After all, the purpose of the ninja school's existence is to train genin for the Leaf Village. For most ninja students, it takes them a long time to even refine chakra, let alone those advanced ninjutsu with changing properties. But not teaching is not teaching. Some lower-level ninjutsu and illusion scrolls are still stored in the ninja school and are placed in the school library. Most of them are D-level and C-level ninjutsu. It is of little use to children from families, because they can learn better ninjutsu from their fathers, and even secret techniques passed down within each clan, but for other children, it is extremely precious. After Bai Mingyu learned the news, he ran there and stayed there for several hours every day. From the piles of low-level ninjutsu, select the ninjutsu scrolls that are useful to you and copy the contents down one by one. Speaking of which, another difficulty for civilian ninjas to learn ninjutsu lies in the properties of chakra. The so-called chakra is the physical energy absorbed from the 130 trillion cells of the human body, plus the spiritual energy exercised through many practices and accumulated experience, and is produced by the integration of the two. According to the different properties, it is divided into 7 properties: fire, water, wind, thunder, earth, yin and yang, corresponding to the escape techniques of each attribute. Everyone is born with 1 or 2 attributes that are highly compatible with each other. For example, Naruto's wind attribute, and Erzu's fire and thunder attributes. Other attributes of chakra can be gradually mastered through acquired practice, but if they are not consistent with your main attributes, the effect of practice will be half the result. The average Junin can only be proficient in 2 or 3 attributes. Only a very few people, such as Hitaki Kakashi, can use the Sharingan to skillfully release the 5 ninjutsus and achieve the name of Copy Ninja, while the 3rd-generation Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen, another strong man with all 5 attributes, by virtue of his hard training, he became proficient in all types of ninjutsu and was known as a doctor of ninjutsu. The way to detect chakra properties is to use chakra test paper. Fire. Paper will catch fire. Wind. The paper will split in the middle. Ray. The paper will wrinkle. Water. Paper gets wet. Soil. Paper will shred. If multiple attributes are present at the same time, different signs will appear together on the same sheet. Chakra test strips are not expensive things and can be sold in ninja shops. However, ordinary civilian ninjas do not know about attribute changes at all. They can only wait for graduation and inform their respective instructors through the test, and then carry out targeted changes. Ninjutsu training. Bai Mingyu passed the test and confirmed his chakra attributes. Water and thunder. Like the 2 pillars, they are both born with 2 attributes. It's just that his water escape seems a little different from others. The art of escaping water and turbulent waves. This is the simplest ninjutsu in water release, AC level ninjutsu. The principle is to spit out waves of water to wash away the enemy. However, after Bai Mingyu formed a seal with his hands and used it, the water wave spit out from his mouth began to condense into crystals halfway, forming an ice-water mixture between water and ice. Although the appearance has not changed much, the temperature is even lower, which can be described as freezing cold. And when it hits an enemy, the ice mixed in the water waves will cause additional frostbite effects. Is it because of Soda Shirayuki's relationship that it affected my body and formed the blood inheritance limit of ice release? Bai Mingyu was not sure. But this change is always a good thing. Mixing changes in ice attributes into water escape can greatly enhance the power of water escape. Bai Mingyu began to try how to maximize the lethality of this ice-water mixed escape. Sure enough, we should find time to steal the sealed book. After running out of chakra again and sitting on the ground to rest, Bai Mingyu wiped his sweat and murmured. The art of shadow clones is really a cheating tool for practicing ninjutsu. When he thought that in the original book, Naruto released hundreds of shadow clones to develop ninjutsu together, while he could only rely on one body to practice hard, Bai Mingyu suddenly felt good, tired. Bang bang. A forest glade not far away. A row of shurikens and kunai were nailed around the target in a mess. Only 2 or 3 landed on the target, and the hit rate was terrible. Xiang Ling sweated and panted for a while before turning to look at Bai Mingyu. Brother Bai Yu, the throwing method you mentioned last time doesn't seem to work. Bai Mingyu turned around, smiled, and stepped forward. Watch it, I'll show you again. Bai Mingyu took a deep breath, cleared his mind, and quickly passed his eyes from the front, back, left, and right to the targets scattered on the rocks around him. He quickly deduced it in his mind, and then suddenly took action. First, throw out a few kunai. Then he turned over and jumped up, moved around, turned around, twisted his waist, and quickly threw other kunai out one by one. The angle of each kunai seemed to be accurately calculated, drawing beautiful arcs in midair. Wire. The whole process went smoothly. Bang bang. A series of muffled noises. Each kunai was nailed to a target, and even the target placed on the back of the rock hit the target due to the ejection collision between kunai, which looked very surprising. Uchiha Itachi taught his younger brother the art of shuriken. Just 2 days ago, Bai Mingyu's shuriken throwing technique finally broke through to level 7, and he could almost perfectly replicate the shuriken technique that Itachi Uchiha once showed. Although this kind of fancy show-off technique is of no use and can only show off in front of this little girl Xiang Phosphorus, but what should I say? It's quite a sense of accomplishment. At the same time, his attributes have become much stronger than when he first came to Konoha. Name: Asakawa Shiroyu's. Attribute values increase by 200 when in the half-animal state. Age: 8 years old. Chakra: 290/290ths. Ninjutsu value: 29. Physical skill value: 51. Illusion value: 17. Skills: Shuriken throwing technique LV7 and 3979 6400s, beginner's sword technique LV5 and 1181 1600s, Navy 6th form shaver LV4 and 439 800s, fire palm LV3 and 275 400s, Navy 6th form iron block LV2 and 184 200s. Backpack: Taigu Lion King, detonating talisman, Sea Tower stone handcuffs X11, fairy beans X11, silver liang X28. The numerical values of ninjutsu and taijutsu have more than doubled compared to before. Because there really weren't many scrolls left in the ninja school for genjutsu, the practice progress was very slow, and Bai Mingyu had nothing to do. Do you need to dig out a pair of Sharingan eyes and install them on yourself? Even if it is really installed, without the physique of the Uchiha clan, it is estimated that he can only be like Kakashi, a copy ninja who is always short of blue. Bai Mingyu can only place his hope on the treasure box system. I hope that one day I will find an illusion talent or something from the treasure chest to make up for this shortcoming. But the system seemed to be against him. During this period, the treasure chests that were being refreshed one after another were all filled with ninja tools, military grain pills, silver coins and the like. Bai Mingyu wanted to change his career to open ninja tools shop. The only time a bronze treasure chest was refreshed was a pair of seastone handcuffs. This kind of thing is specially used to restrain people with devil fruit abilities. If there is a ghost in the world of Naruto and sells it as scrap metal, no one would be willing to take it. Let's not mention the seafloor stone handcuffs for now. But there was another thing that Bai Mingyu found very valuable, that fairy bean. Even if you are already in a near-death state, one pill of the healing elixir from Dragon Ball will instantly restore your health bar to full. The recovery effect is even more powerful than the physical healing ability of the mother and daughter. It's equivalent to an extra life at a critical moment. Unfortunately, there is only one, so I can't just use it to test the effect. The mind turns around. Bai Mingyu clapped his hands, turned around with a relaxed expression, and looked at Xiang Phosphorus. Look, it's very simple, right? It's easy to practice. It only took me a few days. Quote, Xiang Ling puffed out her cheeks and rolled her eyes. She was so easy to fool. If she hadn't seen it with her own eyes, she would have suspected it was a scam. In comparison, the chakra refining technique and the three-body technique taught by Granny Senju were extremely easy. Let's practice here today. After looking at the sky, Bai Mingyu took back the scattered kunai one by one. Let's go home and eat. And Meiya must have cooked a meal waiting for us by now. The two of them walked along the path of Konoha village toward their home. When they passed an intersection, they suddenly heard a noise, as if a group of children were chasing and fighting. It's the kid I met last time at Ichiraku Ramen. With sharp eyes, Shang Phosphorus recognized a small figure with blonde hair among the group of children from a distance. There were a few beards on both sides of his cheeks. It was Naruto. Naruto's current situation is obviously very bad. Go away, where did this wild boy come from? You dare to make a noise in front of our boss? Are you looking for death? A big, sturdy kid grabbed Naruto by the collar, pushed him a few times, and threw him to the ground. HMPH, you can tell by looking at the beard on his face. This guy is my mother. They say he is really unlucky. Stay away from him and be careful. Like Anon's father, he was killed by him. Several children moved aside in disgust. Among them, the child named Anon. When he heard the word, Dad, it seemed as if some memories were brought back, and deep resentment filled his eyes. Dad, it's all your fault, I'm going to kill you. He suddenly pounced on Naruto and strangled his neck with both hands, like a crazy tiger. Naruto was also struggling hard, but the thin man was no match for Anon. Soon his face turned red from being pinched, and his struggling strength became weaker and weaker. Stop! There was a somewhat childish shout. Just as Anon was about to raise his head, a small red figure grabbed his shoulder, lifted him out, and fell heavily to the ground. Fragrance. Kaoru, who has the blood of the Uzumaki clan, is much stronger than children of the same age despite his young age. After pulling Anon away, he looked at Naruto who was holding his throat and coughing desperately. He put his hands on his hips and glared at the other children. What are you going to do? There are so many people bullying one person, so there is no shame. What do you know? The leading eldest child glared at Xiangling with dissatisfaction and shouted, Where did you come from, a wild girl? Don't you know that this boy is the famous Sanjman Xing in the village? I heard that many ninjas were killed by him. You're so close to him, aren't you afraid of being infected by bad luck? Fragrant was startled. Not far away, Bai Mingyu watched this scene coldly and sighed silently. Sure enough, it's the same as in the original work. Naruto's childhood experiences. Although the Nine Tails attack on the village 3 or 4 years ago had nothing to do with Naruto, it was a real thing that caused the death of a large number of ninjas and civilians in Konoha village. In this case, Naruto, as the nine-tailed Jinchuriki, became an outlet. He is hated by many villagers who have lost their loved ones and regarded as the incarnation of the evil fox. Under the words and deeds of these adults, the children in Konoha village also began to hate Naruto. No one wanted to play with him, and some even often bullied and scolded him. Naruto, who suffered such childhood experiences, did not grow crooked and became a positive and sunny ninja hero. It can only be said to be a miracle. Think about Gaara from the next village. Because of the tragic experience of a single-parent family when he was young, he once turned into a murderous maniac who killed people for fun. If the Yondaime Izumi knew better, he would probably regret sealing the Nine Tails into Naruto. Bai Mingyu sighed and stepped forward. Brother Baiyu. Quote, when Xiangling and Naruto heard the sound, the latter's blue eyes lit up for a moment, then quickly dimmed, and he pursed his lips tightly. Can you still stand up? Bai Mingyu lowered his head and glanced at the wounds on Naruto's body. They were all superficial wounds. With the Nine Tails Jinchuriki's rough skin and thick flesh, it would take less than a day for him to be alive and kicking. Ignoring the stunned Naruto, Bai Mingyu turned his gaze to the children opposite and said calmly, you guys, when you've had enough fun, go home quickly and don't mess around outside. You, who are you? The older kid swallowed. He was actually 6 or 7 years old, and he looked about the same height as Bai Mingyu, but under Bai Mingyu's aura, he only felt guilty and short of breath. I'm warning you, don't think what we just said was a joke. Anon's father was killed by him, and the 4th Hokage on the rock wall was also killed. Shoo! Before he finished speaking, a black shadow suddenly struck from the side. I saw a flash of black light passing in front of the older child. The latter was stunned. The next moment, a white-haired man wearing a fox mask appeared behind him and slashed with his knife. The child didn't even make a sound, fell down. Silence. The other children didn't react. As for Bai Mingyu, although he clearly saw that the black light was a kunai, the white-haired man took action too quickly and had no time to stop it. You, go home. The white-haired man didn't look back and his voice was very calm. However, there was a chilling tone in the words, which made people shudder. Dark, Anbu. Some children recognized this costume, pulled each other to lift up the fainting older child, and ran around in a pee. And you guys, go home quickly. The white-haired man glanced coldly at Bai Mingyu and the others, made a seal with one hand, and disappeared out of thin air, just as abruptly as when he appeared. Brother Bai Yu, that person just now was. Yes, it's Anbu. Bai Mingyu casually rubbed Shanglu's little head and glanced deeply at the place where the white-haired man had stood just now. Although he is wearing a mask, his identity can be easily identified from his iconic silver white hair and lazy voice. Hitaki Kakashi, who was an Anbu at the time. Kakashi's sudden appearance was indeed a bit unexpected, but in retrospect, he probably wasn't trying to help Naruto, but because the older kid mentioned the name of the fourth Hokage in his words just now. In order to seal the 9 tails, the fourth Hokage chose to die with the latter. It is a secret in Konoha village. Telling these inside stories to children is in itself a violation of the rules set by Konoha's top management, and he also told it in front of so many children. I guess the older kid's parents will be invited to Anbu for tea soon. Speaking of which, working in Anbu is pretty good. You can do whatever you want and do whoever you want. Bai Mingyu shook his head and smiled, putting aside the random thoughts in his mind, and turned to look at Naruto. At this time, the little guy struggled to get up from the ground, covered his shoulders, turned his back numbly, and slowly walked out. There was no sparkle in his blue eyes, and there was a crunching sound from his tightly pursed lips, as if he was trying his best to endure something. Naruto. Shang Liao hesitated for a moment and chased after him. Are you going home? Home. If you are talking about that empty house, you are indeed going home. Naruto grinned, showing a smile that was uglier than crying, and said in a hoarse voice, Thank you, Shanglin, Baiyu, I'm going home. I'll play with you again when I have the opportunity. Not later, just today. Bai Mingyu smiled and patted Naruto on the shoulder pretending to be nothing happened. Shangli, you and your aunt won't mind if you invite Naruto home for dinner today. Of course I don't mind. Shang Lian shook her head. Although her impression of Naruto wasn't very good when she met him last time, she couldn't say she was disgusted. In addition, after witnessing what happened to Naruto in the village, the little girl still felt some sympathy in her heart without saying anything. At the same time, there are also some sympathizers. When their mother and daughter lived in the country of grass, their situation was not much better. I originally thought that things would be different when I arrived in Konoha, but I found that Konoha also had such a phenomenon of bullying. From Naruto, Xiangling seemed to see his own shadow. Back home, Uzumaki Miya accepted Naruto as a little guest smoothly. After learning that Naruto's mother was also a Uzumaki clan member and had lived alone since she was a child, she became even more fond of him. She frequently poured food into Naruto's bowl when eating. Pick up vegetables. Naruto, you're welcome, just treat it like you're at home. Eat more vegetables to grow taller. Auntie, Naruto grimaced and wanted to say that he didn't like eating vegetables, but due to Uzumaki Miya's enthusiasm, he couldn't say it, so he had to pick up his rice bowl and dig into the rice. By accident, the rice got stuck in his throat, and he immediately beat his chest and coughed, making Shang Lu, who was sitting opposite him, laugh. Zan Ling, don't make fun of others, it's very rude. Uzumaki Miya helped Naruto pat his back, glanced at his daughter, and frowned slightly. I'm sorry, haha, I really can't hold it in. Ahem, what a barbaric laughter. Naruto's face turned red from coughing, and he muttered something quietly. Shang Lian's movement of slapping the table and laughing stopped, his face was red and his eyes widened in annoyance. He pressed his hands on the table and leaned forward, asking word by word, what did you say? I didn't say anything. Naruto was so frightened that he couldn't even speak, and the hand holding the rice bowl shook. Bai Mingyu stirred the rice porridge in the bowl and watched the interaction between the two little guys with interest. Not to mention, Shang Phosphorus's personality is really similar to Kushina, and with her red hair, she has a legacy of blood red pepper. Naruto has been fearless since childhood, but he was so frightened that he didn't even dare to breathe. After fussing for a while, we finally finished our meal. Uzumaki Miya quickly put away the dishes. By you, Shanglu, please send Naruto off. It's not convenient for him to go home so late alone. In addition, if Naruto doesn't mind, he can come here for dinner every day in the future. You and Shanglu are the same age. It's almost the same, it's nice to have a playmate. The two children were stunned for a moment, and then heard a snort. Who wants to play with him? Brother by you is enough to play with me. Xiangling folded his arms and muttered dissatisfiedly. He glanced at Naruto's expression with his peripheral vision and then said, but if Naruto insists on asking, then I will reluctantly agree, because I am older than him. Hey, being a sister is troublesome. Who said that? Based on my age, I should be the older brother, right? I told you I'm your sister. I don't have an unfeminine sister like you. Quote, seeing that the two children had a disagreement and were about to quarrel again, Bai Mingyu helplessly grabbed one of the children by the collar and separated the two little guys. Okay, if you want to quarrel next time, I will send Naruto away first. Go home. Shang Liao, you can help Auntie clean the house at home. It's not safe to go out at night. Okay then. Shang Ling nodded sadly and made a face at Naruto. Not to be outdone, Naruto stuck out his tongue. Before the two of them could speak again, Bai Mingyu reached back and closed the door. Take Naruto to the other side of Konoha village. Is your home in this direction? Crossing a street again, Bai Mingyu stared. The two-story apartment building he had seen many times in the anime appeared at the end of the street. It was obviously where Naruto lived. Just send it here. Naruto stopped and scratched his head in embarrassment. The room has not been tidied up and is very messy, so I won't invite you in. Brother by you, can I really go and play with you and Shang Phosphorus in the future? Bai Mingyu caught a hint of wariness deep in Naruto's eyes, hidden beneath the expectation. He has been treated in various indifferent ways by the people in the village all year round. It is obviously unrealistic for him to accept other people's kindness all at once. Although Uzumaki Miya and Koryosu both asked him to come over for dinner, Naruto probably didn't take them seriously and only regarded them as casual polite words. Of course, as long as you are willing, we welcome you to come over anytime. After rubbing Naruto's golden hair, Bai Mingyu gently pushed his shoulder. Don't think too much, go back and have a good sleep. Tomorrow is a new day. Bai Mingyu is not good at saying comforting words. And with the prince's strength, he probably doesn't need others to comfort him. But it could still be done if Naruto could have a few more friends during his childhood. Well, speaking of it, the pair of CPs of Naruto and Xianglin seem to be quite suitable. They are also a pair of golden glitter and blood red peppers. Cough cough. Bai Mingyu finished his thoughts, watched the lights in Naruto's room turn on, and turned to leave. Time flies. In the blink of an eye, 3 months passed by. Ninja school. Bang bang. Another ninja training class. Bai Mingyu weighed the shurikens distributed, raised his hand, and threw them away without looking at the result, and walked aside. Too easy. The current course is no longer challenging for Bai Mingyu. He can even throw his shuriken at the target with his eyes closed and hit wherever he points. Instead of wasting time on these basic exercises, it is better to spare time to think more about ninjutsu. It's a pity that he can't shadow the clone. Otherwise, if you leave a clone to study in school and the main body to practice, you will have more free time. Is this how water body seals are formed? Bai Mingyu imitated the pictures on the scroll and silently made a few hand seals. He felt the chakra surge in his body before releasing his hand seals. There are not many thunder escape scrolls left in the ninja school. There are quite a few water release scrolls. In addition to offensive ninjutsu such as water chaos and water bullets, there are also many practical auxiliary ninjutsus, such as water body and water prison jutsu. The former is similar to the shadow clone, but the clone created only has the power of 10 of the original body, and the ability will not be improved unless it is in water. The function of the water prison technique is to imprison the enemy. In the original work, Zabuza once used it to trap Kakashi. Both of these ninjutsu are sea level and are not difficult to practice. However, if you want to exert good effects, you will have high requirements for chakra control. Mr. Bai Yu. The light overhead dimmed. Bai Mingyu raised his head and saw Izumi Uchiha standing in front of him with his hands behind his back, seemingly hesitant to speak. What's up? Well, Uchiha Izumi bit his lower lip and plucked up the courage to say, that's it, Baiyu-kun, I recently learned some powerful fire escape ninjutsu from my father, so I want to try to challenge you. You see, whenever you have time, let's compete again. Bai Mingyu was startled for a moment, but before he could answer, he heard a noise in the distance. On the other side of the playground, the last students in the class finished their shuriken throwing practice. Teacher Sangyuan clapped her hands and raised her voice and shouted, everyone has performed very well during this period of training. Tomorrow we will have a new practical course. New practice. The conversation between Bai Mingyu and Uchiha Izumi was forced to stop, and their attention was attracted. Other students in the class also became energetic. The actual combat training in the past 2 months has been mainly based on pairwise battles. Although this kind of battle can also improve combat experience, it will inevitably become boring after a long time. After all, the battles between students are basically all about point and shoot, and they cannot use their real trump cards, so they always feel a little constrained during the fight. Thinking of this, Uchiha Quan glanced at Bai Mingyu intentionally or unintentionally. During this period of time, Quan took the initiative to challenge Bai Mingyu several times, but the result was defeat every time, and the more this happened, the more unconvinced she felt. Especially during this period, after she studied hard in private and finally mastered several fire escape ninjutsu techniques taught by her parents, this mentality became even stronger. During the previous sparring, both sides almost used taijutsu, and girls' taijutsu was naturally inferior to boys, which was very unfair. Therefore, Uchiha Izumi really wanted to try to really let go of his hands and feet and use the fire escape that the Uchiha clan is good at. Fight against Bai Mingyu, so even if you lose, you will still be convinced. Just as Izumi Uchiha was thinking this, Teacher Kawazono continued. At 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, everyone will gather here in advance, and then several of us Chunin teachers will take everyone to the forest training area on the south side of the village to conduct a survival drill that will last 2 days and 1 night. The results of this exercise will be included in the total score of the final exam of this semester. In addition, there may be some unexpected dangers during the exercise, as well as training on wild camping, so everyone must prepare what you need to bring in advance, especially food and tents. After spitting a lot, Teacher Sangyuan finally said. Finally, this operation is carried out in the form of a 3-person team, so it is best for everyone to find their teammates in advance today and disband now. The students all responded, but no one left directly. 3-person team. In other words, the focus of this exercise is teamwork. Thinking of this, a group of children all turned their attention to those who ranked high in the actual combat exercises. The most eyes were on Hinata Ryota, and some eyes were also on Uchiha Izumi and Bai Mingyu. Hinata Ryota is the number 1 student in this class. Uchiha Izumi is a member of the Uchiha clan. Although the Sharingan has not yet opened, his level of taijutsu and ninja tools is no weaker than that of Genin, and he is also among the best among the students. As for Bai Mingyu, although his performance in the class is usually very low-key, his record of defeating Izumi Uchiha many times has attracted the attention of many interested people. Mr. Bai Yu, let's form a team together for this survival exercise. Uchiha Izumi also looked over. Okay, but if it's a 3-person team, we seem to be missing 1 member. According to Bai Mingyu, it doesn't matter who the 3rd team member is, but considering that the survival exercise is in a forest, it is best for the remaining teammate to have long-distance perception capabilities to make up for his and Uchiha Izumi's shortcomings. Hyuga Ryota, who has Byakugan, is a good choice, but this guy is arrogant and may not be willing to join their team. While others, Mr. Bai Yu, let me introduce you. Soon, Uchiha Izumi pulled a girl over. The girl was about the same age as her. She had short brown hair, a delicate appearance, and dark red tooth-shaped paint on both sides of her cheeks. Bai Mingyu noticed a white puppy lying on her shoulder, and he roughly guessed the girl's identity. This is my good friend, Hana Inuzuka of the Inuzuka clan. Her family has the habit of raising ninja dogs, and they are very good at tracking. Hello, I'm Shiroha Asakawa. Bai Mingyu and Inuzuka Hana greeted each other. Uchiha Izumi said. Okay, now that our team members have been determined, let's choose a captain first. Baiyu-kun, how about you be the captain? After all, among the three of us, you are the strongest. Hearing this, Inuzuka Hana glanced at Bai Mingyu in surprise. She is a member of the Inuzuka clan, her ability is focused on detection and perception, and her own hard power can only barely rank in the middle or upper reaches of this class of students. But Uchiha Izumi is a member of the Uchiha clan. He is very good in physical skills and shuriken throwing. Now he openly admits that he is not as good as Bai Mingyu, which is really surprising. The captain does not necessarily have to be strong, the main thing is the ability to lead the team. I have no experience in this area, Izumi, you can do it. I don't care, I just listen to you. Quan Fu said helplessly. Okay, I will be the captain for the time being. Now I will assign the tasks. According to the information revealed by Teacher Sanzono, the location of this exercise is the 16th exercise ground in the forest area south of Konoha village. The content of the exercise is to simulate stealing confidential documents. There are 3 documents prepared in advance, which are placed in 3 locations in the training area. There are barriers around them. Only the team that arrives first can obtain the documents. Each team enters from the entrance on the same side of the forest. During the process, they may encounter various beasts in the forest. At the same time, some Chunin teachers will pretend to be enemy ninjas to test the combat skills of each team. After obtaining the document scroll, there is still the possibility that the scroll will be snatched by other teams. The ultimate goal of the mission is to deliver confidential documents to the endpoint 70 kilometers away from the starting point. Taking into account terrain factors, the actual distance to be covered may be further than 70 kilometers. As Izumi Uchiha spoke, he used a branch to write and draw on the sand. Bai Mingyu and Inuzuka Hana next to them looked at each other and nodded. It should be said that he is Itachi's childhood sweetheart and a member of the Uchiha clan. Quan has obviously assumed the role of captain now, talking eloquently and thinking very clearly. The route of Plan A is like this. We enter the forest from this entrance. We may encounter some unexpected situations along the way to the nearest file. If the time is delayed too much, we will change to Plan B here. After the entire route was explained, Bai Mingyu said, just do what you said, I have no objection. Inuzuka Hana nodded. Me too. Okay, let's start preparations now. The first thing is to purchase the items needed for this exercise. Food and water, as well as tents for camping, and other daily necessities. These are all necessary to stay in the forest for 2 days and 1 night. Half an hour later, the 3 of them appeared in the commercial street of Konoha village. Among the 5 major countries, the Fire Country has the most developed economy, and Konoha, as the most important ninja village in the Fire Country, is even more prosperous. Customers are coming and going in the shopping mall, many of them are well dressed. If you don't look at their physical features, they are almost the same as modern cities on Earth. Hello, I want to buy 2 tents. Quan casually slapped a large handful of silver coins on the counter, his aristocratic aura was palpable. This shows the benefits of coming from a big family. Even though Izumi's father was just an ordinary Junin, he was born in the Uchiha clan with a wealthy family and could easily spend hundreds of taels on purchases. This number is almost equal to Konoha's monthly subsidy for orphans. The owner of the ninja shop smiled from ear to ear. He immediately brought over the tent with the best quality and tried hard to sell it. Looking at these young ladies, they probably want to go camping in the mountains. If so, I recommend it. If you buy this knife, it can chop melons, cut vegetables, tighten screws, and pick out ears all in one. It is definitely the best choice for home travel. Quote, after a lot of shopping, I bought a lot of things here and there. It wasn't until several people's backpacks were bulging that Uchiha Izumi and Inuzuka Hana stopped. This stuff is almost enough. Okay, let's go back first. Bai Mingyu lifted the shoulder strap of his backpack and walked back lightly. With so many things packed into it, the backpack was still quite heavy, but the weight-bearing vest he was wearing now weighed a full 30 kilograms. Even with this little extra weight, he still felt light and relaxed. On the contrary, after the 2 girls lifted their backpacks, their expressions became slightly troubled. Inuzuka worked hard to help Quan hang up his backpack, looked at Bai Mingyu next to him, and seemed to be unable to hold back and asked, well, Baiyu-kun, what is your current strength level? Why do you ask so suddenly? Izumi said that you are very powerful. In the actual combat training for more than a month, you have never used your full strength. So I want to know, if you and Hinata Ryota really let go and fight, can you win against him? It's half a pound, Bai Mingyu said vaguely. Inuzuka Hana obviously didn't believe it and wanted to ask more questions. Uchiha Izumi said seriously. Shiroha-kun, although I don't know why you hide yourself, I know that your true strength must be very, very strong. But there are also some newly learned abilities that have not been used in previous battles. So, when this survival exercise is over, I hope you can accept my challenge and have a good fight with me. Quote. This seems unnecessary. Necessary, Quan said solemnly. I have a very good friend. He is a rare genius in our clan. He and I entered the ninja school in the same year, but he graduated early from the school in just 1 year. I know that my talent is not as good as his, but I don't want to watch the gap between me and him getting wider and wider, so I'm begging you. That friend of yours is talking about Itachi, right? This sentence passed through Bai Mingyu's throat, and he finally sighed, okay, since you ask so. It happened that he also wanted to test the power of his newly developed ice-water escape in actual combat, and Uchiha Izumi was a good training partner. Early the next morning, on the playground of the ninja school, more than 30 children in the class gathered on time. Under the leadership of several Chunin teachers, including Mr. Sanzono, the team arrived at the Death Forest on the south side of the village. Yes, it was the examination room where Naruto's class of candidates took the Chunin exam in the original book. Of course, the exercise route was different from the Chunin exam. This forest is also one of the largest training areas in Konoha. The dense jungle stretches for hundreds of kilometers. From the outside, it looks like a dark green ocean, stretching as far as the eye can see. I have warned you about the precautions in advance. In short, no matter what situation you encounter, you must give priority to ensuring the safety of your team. If you encounter force majeure, immediately send out a signal flare, and then stop where you are and wait for the Chunin teacher to respond. If you remember live, then set off. As soon as teacher Sangyuan finished speaking, the students, who had already been waiting for it with hunger and thirst, rushed into the forest of death one after another. These little guys usually stay in school. It is a rare opportunity to go out and have fun, and they can't hold it back for a long time. Apart from Bai Mingyu and his team, only 2 or 3 teams could still maintain their composure. One of the teams was captained by Hinata Ryota. He glanced far away and led 2 of his men into the forest. Waiting until the last team entered the forest, Quan put away the map. They looked at Bai Mingyu and Inuzuka Hana and nodded in unison. Let's go too. Suddenly entering the dense and boundless forest, Bai Mingyu and Uchiha Izumi felt a little uncomfortable. When I looked outside, I didn't feel anything. But when I came in, I was surrounded by identical trees. The top of my head was also blocked by the dense canopy. I couldn't see the sun. I could only see some light spots shining through the leaves. It was easy to get lost. Among the 3 people, Inuzuka Hana was the most skillful. The Inuzuka clan has been training ninja dogs since they were young. They often run in the forest all day long, and they are very familiar with jungle environments such as the Death Forest. Inuzuka Hana took her dog named Beimaru and rushed to the front. Bai Mingyu and Uchiha Izumi were scattered on both sides. Suddenly, Bai Wan barked several times. Inuzuka Hana also sniffed and her expression changed slightly. There are 3 people in the bushes about 120 meters away at 7 o'clock. 2 of them are squatting behind the big tree. They are members of Aburame Shinobu's team. Learn. Bai Mingyu and Quan looked at each other and heard 2 muffled bangs. They stepped on 2 tree trunks respectively, and their figures quickly swept to both sides. A few seconds later, they appeared more than 10 meters away from Aburame Shinobu's team, standing on a tall tree trunk and looking down. From a high position, I saw 3 children behind the bushes at my feet nervously staring at the movement ahead. Juksen, didn't you say someone has already arrived? Why haven't they arrived yet? My bugs did detect signs of human activity just now, and they were coming in our direction. Wait a minute. The child named Aburame Shishin pushed up his sunglasses and was about to say something when a tiny flying insect flew to his ear. After 2 seconds, the latter's expression suddenly changed. Not good, top of my head. Two figures descended from the sky. Before the three children could react, Bai Mingyu struck each one with his knife, and the three of them fainted and fell to the ground one after another. Solved. Bai Mingyu clapped his hands and waited for a few more seconds before he saw a girl with long black hair appear on the tree trunk. He glanced down and muttered with displeasure on his face, "Hey, why did you do it so quickly? At least leave one for me to deal with." Sorry, next time." Bai Mingyu smiled. Not every batch of ninja students is like Konoha Xiaoqiang. Just like the child he knocked unconscious just now, although he is from the Aburame clan, he is too young and does not even know basic secret techniques such as insect clones. It was solved in one face-to-face meeting, and the battle couldn't start at all. There is absolutely no sense of accomplishment in bullying these little brats. After a while, Inuzuka Hana and Shiromaru arrived. The three people simply cleaned up the scene, picked up Aburame Shishin and others and stuffed them into a tree hole, and then set off on the road again. The morning passed quickly. Bai Mingyu and Uchiha Quan gradually adapted to the environment of the Death Forest, relying on constantly stepping on tree trunks to move at high speed in the jungle. However, in just half a day, we have already advanced 20 kilometers. Follow the marks on the map and walk 10 kilometers further to where the first confidential document is stored. Izumi stuffed the map back into his backpack and turned to look at Inuzuka Hana. "Hana-chan, are there any other teams within 1 kilometer nearby?" Within one morning, their three-person team had encountered 3 or 4 student teams one after another. Altogether, that's nearly half the number of people in this exercise. After all, there are only 3 confidential documents. If you want to be the winner, you must eliminate as many opponents as possible in the first half of the game. The reason why Bai Mingyu's team can predict the existence of others in advance is entirely due to the sense of smell of Inuzuka Hana and Shiromaru. Although in the original work, the Inuzuka clan is almost the weakest in terms of comprehensive strength among the major families in Konoha. Even if we don't talk about the 3 major pupil techniques, the yin-yang escape of the 3 Inuzuka clan is far superior to them. And strictly speaking, the enhanced sense of smell of the Inuzuka clan is not a blood inheritance limit, but a series of family secrets that have been explored through raising ninja dogs for generations. But this ability is surprisingly useful in some specific situations. Capture the enemy's hiding place in advance, and you can take your time whether it is a sneak attack or evasion, which is very suitable for playing the role of a scout on the battlefield. No, Inuzuka Hana and Shiromaru sniffed the scent in the air carefully before replying. While talking, several people had arrived at a forest clearing and stopped. "Let's take a rest here first and eat something to regain our strength. We will continue on our way in an hour." As the captain, Izumi ordered. The 3 of them sat cross-legged on the grass and took food and water from their backpacks. They didn't show it when they were on their way, but now that they sat down, both Izumi and Inuzuka Hana showed tired expressions. After all, she is a girl. After driving for a long time, her physical strength can no longer keep up. There is the sound of water over there, it should be the river marked on the map. "You guys rest first, I'll go get some water and bring it back." Bai Mingyu listened for a while, picked up the kettle, said hello and left in a hurry. To survive in the wild, food and fresh water are necessary. In addition to what you carry with you before departure, trying to find food and water sources in the wild is also a very important survival skill. Because when ninjas perform tasks, they often have to operate in the wild. Sometimes they cannot encounter towns for several days and nights, and they will not look for food sources in the wild, and they will only starve to death. Food can come from wild beasts in the mountains and wild fruits from trees. Fresh water must be drawn from clean streams. After leaving Izumi and Inuzuka Hana a little further, Bai Mingyu quietly entered a half-animal state, got down on all fours, and ran like a lion in the direction where the sound of water came from. However, just after running a few hundred meters, his movements suddenly stopped. The whole person twisted his waist abruptly in midair, stretched his limbs slightly, and landed on the ground as lightly as a cat. Then he rolled and leaned over to hide behind a tree trunk. Someone. Near the spring not far away, there were faint signs of human voices. This operation against Konoha is an important task for our hidden village. Remember, we must not let anything go wrong no matter what. Lord Zishu, please rest assured, even if I die, I will definitely complete the mission and bring back information to our ninja village. Okay, here's what we'll do next. By a wide stream, several figures were fetching water and discussing something in a low voice. One of them was a man with a dark face and a strong build. He was sitting on a rock-like half-an-iron tower. The person called Zishu-sama was a blonde female ninja, wearing a dark blue ninja uniform, a mask, and white bandages on her wrists and calves. She was about to say something when her eyes suddenly changed and she suddenly pulled out a bandage from behind. Holding a kunai, his eyes looked coldly at the trees behind him. Who is it? Quote, no answer. Lord Zishu. The startled black man looked at the blonde female ninja in astonishment. The latter frowned, stood up, and watched the movement in the grass with vigilant eyes. Suddenly, the blonde female ninja seemed to have seen something, and she quickly flew towards one direction. The speed was so fast that she actually left a blurry afterimage in midair. Scare, disappeared out of thin air and appeared out of thin air. Teleportation. As a ghostly figure appeared in the woods with the sound of wind, a frightened hare flew out from the grass not far away. The blonde female ninja glanced at it from the corner of her eye and ignored it completely. In an instant he came to the big tree where Bai Mingyu was hiding, raised his hand, and kunai stabbed behind the tree with a high-pitched sound. This, Soda no Shirayuki instantly unsheathed the kunai and blocked the kunai, but the blonde ninja's movements did not stop at all. A flash of black light flashed across the kunai in her hand before she slashed at him again. In the blink of an eye, he had already exchanged dozens of blows with Bai Mingyu. Under the collision of weapons, dazzling fire splashed everywhere as if it was free of charge. Very strong. Bai Mingyu's heart sank. When he came here just now, Bai Mingyu noticed the movement on the stream side. In his half-animal state, his perception ability is no less than that of Hana Inazuka, who owns a ninja dog. So I stopped in advance and took a look. I originally thought it was a Chunin teacher from the ninja school, because one of the contents of this exercise was for the Chunin teacher to pretend to be an enemy ninja and conduct a surprise attack to test their team combat level. Of course, in this process, the teacher will only use genin level strength to test the student's mastery of basic ninjutsu. But after seeing clearly the appearance and characteristics of these people, this guess was immediately rejected by Bai Mingyu. He had met most of the Chunin teachers in the school, but he had never seen this black man. Even among the 5 major countries in the entire Naruto world, only one country has such a completely different skin color from the Central Plains. Could it be that these people are ninjas from Union Village? But, hasn't the Hinata incident been settled a long time ago? Cloud Hidden Village still dares to sneak into Konoha Village. We are not afraid that the peace agreement that was negotiated and finally signed will be broken down again. After a few flashes of thought, Bai Mingyu prepared to retreat. Unexpectedly, just the sound of breaking a blade of grass would arouse the vigilance of the blonde female ninja. If she hadn't immediately pulled out Soda Shirayuki to block, I'm afraid Bai Mingyu would have been killed by her blow at that moment. Rao is so. The blonde female ninja immediately launched a violent offensive, and her moves were so fast that they even left afterimages in midair. Bai Mingyu's entry-level sword skills at level 4 could only barely resist, and it became increasingly difficult for him to be attacked by the blonde female ninja. Finally, only a pinging sound was heard. The blonde female ninja used a kunai to fly Soda Shirayuki out of Bai Mingyu's hand, and then stabbed him in the heart, obviously intending to kill him on the spot. If the tiger doesn't show off its power, you really think I am? Bai Mingyu was also angry when he secretly sneaked into Konoha village and was discovered by himself, and he killed him even after a disagreement. Iron block. As a layer of steel-like color appeared above his heart, Bai Mingyu slapped the blonde female ninja on the arm with a fire palm. The latter obviously did not expect that he still had the strength to resist at this time, and the kunai stabbed Bai Mingyu's chest. While moving forward, he was also hit hard on his arm by the thrust rolled up by blowing fire palm. Suddenly, a slight crisp sound was heard from the bones, as if they were broken somewhere. The expression of the blonde female ninja changed. The kunai was withdrawn at the touch of Bai Mingyu's chest, and then she quickly stepped back. She used her intact hand to twist the injured arm twice and straightened the bones. I tried waving the kunai a few times, but it was obvious that the movement was a bit awkward and my fingertips were trembling slightly. Who are you with this kind of physical skills? That's what I should ask you. Bai Mingyu grinned and silently glanced at the scratches on his clothes. The opponent's strength was indeed unexpectedly strong. Even though he used the 6-type iron block, the blonde female ninja easily broke through his defense. With a casual swipe of the kunai, his clothes were easily torn. If it weren't for his scruples about blowing fire palm and taking the initiative to retreat, Bai Mingyu would have been disemboweled by now. Even the blowing fire palm, an instant fighting technique that is comparable to the breakthrough of sea-level wind escape ninjutsu, only caused very slight damage to the blonde female ninja. The gap is a bit big. To be able to achieve this level is definitely not a chunin, I'm afraid it's at least a junin level. How did such a guy sneak into Konoha? Are all the chunin guarding the gate deaf and blind? Bai Mingyu slandered silently in his heart, and moved his palm slightly. Sho Shirayuki, who had just been put into the backpack, slipped into his hand and held it tightly. The blood in his body also boiled, his nails grew longer, a pair of cat ears grew on his head, and even his pupils turned into 2 black vertical lines. Completely entering the half-animal state of the Lion King. If this blonde female ninja really has the strength of a Jonin, even if he uses all his cards, he may not be his opponent. In this case, any failure will lead to the failure of the battle. Can only fight. Bai Mingyu made a decision in an instant. The decision to escape, as long as he could create a brief opportunity, run away immediately by virtue of his half-animal state, and then use the invisibility cloak where no one could see him, even if the opponent was a Jonin, presumably also helpless. The plan was finalized in an instant. The next moment, he took the initiative and formed a seal. The art of escaping water and turbulent waves. Chakra condensed in midair, and a stream of ice water rushed straight towards the blonde female ninja. Sculpture skills. The blonde female ninja narrowed her eyes, then put the kunai into her mouth, and formed a seal with her hands, fire release rat tail ball jade. Blue fire balls formed by condensation of chakra emerged faintly. Under the control of the chakra lines of the 10 fingers of the blonde female ninja, they shot out from all directions like a yo-yo. Bang bang. The ice water hardly acted as a hindrance and was directly penetrated by these blue fire balls. Bai Mingyu's face changed, he rolled on the spot, pulled up Shu Baishui from the ground, and then waved his backhand. Ice palm. The sharp blade rolled up a flurry of snowflakes, which quickly spread around, lowering the temperature of the open space several degrees in the blink of an eye. Under the sudden change, the expression of the blonde female ninja also showed a hint of astonishment. Are you a ninja student with the blood inheritance limit? It's interesting, but in order to prevent our plan from being leaked, we must capture you here. Go with. The blonde female ninja waved her hand, and the ball of fire hit the ice and immediately exploded with a bang. Immediately afterwards, the blue fireballs exploded one after another, and the splashing flames fell all around, immediately burning the surrounding vegetation completely. The powerful impact not only shattered the ice palm, but also directly knocked Bai Mingyu out. Why is Nima so strong? As soon as the ice palm broke, other rat-tailed ball jades smashed up one after another, exploding around Bai Mingyu, and huge blue fire shot into the sky. The explosion lasted for half a minute. The blue flame burns brightly. When the smoke dissipated, the entire ground looked like it had been gnawed by dogs. The surrounding trees, flowers and plants were all charred black, and it looked terrible. There are still some remaining ice slags in some places, which are being licked by the flames and making a beeping sound, and steam is rising. Are you dead? The blonde female ninja looked around, but did not find Bai Mingyu. Most people couldn't bear such a level of continuous explosions, but the fact that there were no bones left behind was a bit exaggerated. The black man by the stream ran over. Although the battle just now was short, the scene was extremely fierce. He did not dare to step in easily. It was only now that the smoke subsided for the time being that he shouted, "Master Zishu, should we leave? If you continue to stay, the ninjas of Konoha may notice it." The blonde female ninja turned a deaf ear to her companion's words and looked around again before turning around with confusion. Let's go. We can't find the boy's body. He must have been blown to pieces. In the corner where no one can see. In a trench sunken into the ground, covered by a gray cloak, a piece of ice and snow suddenly loosened and slowly slid to the ground. This is a half-person high sphere, completely white and made of cold ice and snow. Like a miniature fortress, it completely wraps Bai Mingyu's body inside, leaving only a pair of eyes exposed to observe what's going on outside. The surface of the ice and snow fortress is already riddled with holes, and bullet-like marks are clearly visible. Ice Cage Technique. This move is an ice escape technique that Bai Mingyu temporarily developed under the critical situation. It condenses the powerful cold air emitted by Su Shirayuki and forms a hard spherical ice wall to surround himself and isolate himself from the impact from the outside world. The principle comes from the water prison technique. Bai Mingyu had conceived it before when he came into contact with it, but he had never successfully developed it. This time it was considered a super performance. But with one move, his chakra was exhausted. There is no way, the opponent's ninjutsu is too powerful. It is not too difficult to just build a cage to wrap himself, but to offset the impact of the rat tail ball, it consumes a lot of Bai Mingyu's chakra. Fortunately, there is also the invisibility cloak. As long as he can hide it from the eyes of these ninjas, he will be safe after they leave. Just when Bai Mingyu had this idea and planned to survive in the ice, a series of subtle footsteps suddenly came from a distance. At the same time, the blonde female ninja who turned to leave suddenly stopped, raised her eyebrows, and a subtle expression appeared on her fair face. This is. Just ahead, among the trees, two petite figures moved forward quickly, followed by a snow-white puppy. They were Izumi Uchiha and Hana Inuzuka. The two of them were supposed to be waiting at the resting place for Bai Mingyu to fetch water. But Bai Mingyu had been away for too long, and when he fought with the blonde female ninja, the noise he made was too loud, enough to attract the attention of the two girls. After having a premonition that something was not going to happen, the two of them discussed it and followed the sound. There were two more wind noises. One after another, Uchiha Izumi and Inuzuka Hana passed through a bush and appeared 100 meters away. Bai Wan barked a few times. The two girls looked over and immediately saw the blonde kunoichi standing on the other side of the clearing, as well as the black man behind her. The appearance of these two figures was very different from that of the Konoha villagers, which immediately aroused their attention. Vigilance. Sure enough, we met an enemy. Uchiha Izumi's face darkened. He pulled out a kunai from his waist and placed it in his hand. At the same time, he ordered Inuzuka Hana, Hana-chan, look around to see if there is any trace of Shiroha-kun. Inuzuka Hana sniffed when she heard the words, and her eyes slowly moved to somewhere in the open space. Looking at the empty ground, the girl had a puzzled expression on her face. At this moment, the blonde female ninja suddenly smiled and said lightly, "Why, two more people are here to die. For the sake of you all being girls, I don't want to kill people. Before I change my mind, wait, the Uchiha sign on your clothes means you are an Uchiha." The blonde kunoichi caught the clan emblem on Izumi Uchiha's sleeve. "I didn't expect you to be from the Uchiha clan. It seems I can't keep you. Children of the Uchiha clan must be strangled in the cradle before they grow up." In all the great ninja wars, the Sharingan of the Uchiha clan, like the Byakugan of the Hyuga clan, left a deep impression on other major nations. Many ninja villages have issued orders to the ninjas in their own villages. Once they encounter children of the Uchiha clan outside the village, they must try their best to capture their eyes. Otherwise, they must be strangled to prevent them from growing up to become their own village in the future. Threats. Facing the sudden murderous aura of the blonde female ninja, Izumi Uchiha's expression turned stern and he clenched the kunai in his hand. "If you want to kill me, it depends on whether you have the ability." Shuriken Jutsu. Suddenly, Izumi swung out the kunai in his hand, and the black kunai flew into the air like a sharp arrow and stabbed the blonde female ninja. The latter twisted his neck to avoid it, then kicked the ground with his feet and rushed forward quickly. "It's a good shot, but it's useless to me." Art Fire Escape Ho Fireball. Seeing the figure of the blonde female ninja getting closer and closer, Uchiha Izumi's eyes lit up. Instead of hiding to both sides, he quickly made a few hand seals. At the same time, he took a deep breath in his mouth and exhaled, a ball of blazing fire. The flames spurted out and engulfed the figure of the blonde female ninja. It worked. Just when Uchiha Izumi clenched his fist and thought the attack was effective, he heard a bang. The blonde kunoichi didn't dodge. She rushed out through the flames and punched Uchiha Izumi hard in the stomach. The girl groaned and flew out directly. "Spring!" Inuzuka Hana yelled, then turned around and clasped his hands. Shiromaru Ninpo, four-legged jutsu orc clone. With a bang, Inuzuka Hana and Shiromaru merged into one, turning into a huge wolf dog. He rushed towards the blonde female ninja, opened his mouth wide, and bit the latter's arm with sharp teeth, and refused to let go no matter how the latter shook. Ha ha! With a few soft sounds, more than a dozen shurikens were shot out from the direction of Uchiha Spring. The next moment, the girl's figure stepped on the tree trunk and reappeared in front of the blonde female ninja. With her hands together, the hand that had been avoided was pulled back by the thread again, forming an intertwined net that bound the blonde Kunoichi and Inuzuka Hana together. Wajong, get out of the way. Inuzuka Hana released the orc clone, and Shiromaru quickly jumped to the side. Immediately afterwards, Uchiha Izumi formed his hand seal again, opened his mouth and spit out a ball of blazing flames, fire release go fireball technique. The red flame moved quickly along the thread, and the next moment it came into contact with the blonde female ninja, it turned into a torrential flame and soared into the sky. This time, Uchiha Izumi did not take it lightly, staring straight ahead with his eyes full of nervousness. Performing well, a faint voice sounded out of thin air. Uchiha Izumi and Inuzuka Hana were startled at the same time. They turned to look to the right and saw a tall tree trunk with a blonde female ninja standing on it. She said coldly, "The cooperative tactics are good, although they are hostile. I still want to cheer for you. It's a pity that you are destined to die here. Don't blame me. This is something that all ninjas must experience, it's just sooner or later." Before she finished speaking, a fierce murderous aura emanated from her body. Chapter 31. Uchiha Izumi and Inuzuka Hana, who were originally eager to try, trembled involuntarily after feeling the murderous aura, and a chill surged from their hearts. This kind of murderous aura was condensed into a real murderous aura after countless blood was stained on the hands. No need to say anything, it can make people feel cold all over. Finished. Just when Izumi and Inuzuka Hana had this idea at the same time, two kunai suddenly flew out from somewhere covered by leaves. At an unexpected and tricky angle, with a bang, they were nailed to two tree trunks next to the blonde female ninja. A string of talisman paper hung on the kunai ring, with dense patterns drawn on it, vaguely forming the character explosion. It's a detonator. The blonde female ninja's pupils shrank. The next moment, two strings of detonating symbols exploded. Pong! Violent fire broke out in an instant, and thick smoke engulfed the nearby jungle 100 meters away. This loud noise could be heard even by people several kilometers away. In the thick smoke, a figure quickly passed by. When he rushed to the two girls, he grabbed their wrists with both hands and rushed forward without slowing down at all. "Who is it?" Uchiha Izumi asked nervously. "Don't be nervous, it's me. Let's go first." Bai Mingyu casually waved Shu Baishui, and the powerful cold air formed a layer of white frost visible to the naked eye in midair, standing up like a thin wall. Of course, he didn't expect that such a thin wall could stop the blonde female ninja from being tracked. The main function of this wall was to serve as a warning. Once someone broke through, he would immediately feel it. The series of movements just now, especially the sound made by the string of detonating charms thrown by him at the end, must have alerted the Chunin teachers guarding outside the forest. As long as other Konoha ninjas come over, this crisis will be resolved. No matter whether the blonde ninja fights or leaves, there will always be others blocking the front. The most urgent task now is to escape. What happened? Somewhere in the forest of death, Teacher Sengyuan and others, who were walking in the forest disguised as hostile ninjas, raised their heads in surprise and looked in the direction of the sound. That's the direction where students are conducting survival drills. Could it be that something happened to the students? From the sound, it seems that a detonator was used. Which student is so careless? I wonder if it might kill someone. No, it may be that I encountered other situations and was forced to use the detonating talisman. Anyway, we should rush over as soon as possible to take a look. If we are really in danger, it may be too late to rush over now. At the same time that several Chunin teachers finished their discussion, they rushed towards the direction of the explosion. Three small figures ran wildly in opposite directions among the trees. Suddenly, the young man among them staggered, as if he had been unloaded in one breath, and his whole body suddenly lost strength. "Mr. Bai Yu." The black-haired girl next to her quickly grabbed the boy's arm and put it on her shoulder. She gritted her teeth and ran forward. The little girl next to her with red tooth-shaped paint on her cheeks ran and raised her head. Looking back and forth, and speaking out a few reminders from time to time, the three of them continued to avoid obstacles in the woods without slowing down at all. I ran for 4 or 5 minutes at a stretch before slowly slowing down. After passing through a bush again, Uchiha Izumi stopped, his chest heaving violently, and his mouth was breathing heavily. I have run so far, I shouldn't catch up again. Shiroi-kun, are you okay? What do you say? Bai Mingyu had a wry smile on his face. The way he looked now could not be said to be okay. In the previous brief battle with the blonde female ninja, he was completely at a disadvantage. He was seriously injured in the explosion, and his whole body was covered with traces of being burned by the flames. Later, when I used the detonating talisman to cover the evacuation, I also received some shocks. These injuries have recovered somewhat in the half-animal state, but the deeper wounds are still there, and the mottled blood stains on the clothes are unusually obvious. Izumi Uchiha noticed the blood stains and was shocked. Baiyu-kun, your injury, hesitated for a moment, then Quan made a decisive decision. No, we will send you back to the village immediately. Such injuries must be treated by ninjas from the medical class as soon as possible, otherwise their lives will be in danger. No, I can still withstand this injury. Bai Mingyu shook his head. The Lion King's recovery effect is extremely powerful. The mysterious lion is immortal and has the ability to be almost immortal. In the original work, the owner Leoni was still pierced in the heart and his hands and feet were cut off. He was able to stop the bleeding on his own and reattach the severed limbs. Compared to this, the injuries he suffered now could only be considered minor injuries. Different from Uchiha Izumi's nervousness. Inuzuka Hana, on the other hand, had been curiously looking at the raised ears on both sides of Bai Mingyu's head since just now. Sometimes she came to the front, and sometimes she looked from the side. Suddenly she couldn't help it, and reached out to touch it, with a puzzled look on her face. Hey, are your ears real? It feels like real cat ears. Where did you buy them? Tell me the store address. Bai Mingyu leaned his upper body back, avoiding Inuzuka Hana's groping hand, and said with some embarrassment, this is not the time to ask these questions. Do you know who the person who almost killed us just now is? Quote, who is it? I'm not sure, maybe he's a Jonin from Hidden Cloud Village. Bai Mingyu turned back to look in the direction of escape, with a hint of deep meaning in his eyes. The black man once called the blonde female ninja by her name, but the name, Zemo, was obviously a code name. As for the real name of the blonde female ninja, Bai Mingyu can probably guess a little bit. I'm afraid it's two Yumu people. The strange fire escape ninjutsu of the rat-tailed ball is exactly the unique technique of the two-tailed Jinchuriki. If the opponent's identity is really the second-tailed Jinchuriki of Cloud Hidden Village, things will be interesting. As long as any Jinchuriki grows up, he will almost start as an elite Jonin, or even more likely to be a quasi-cage level master. If it weren't for various concerns that they didn't dare to openly use the ability to transform into a tailed beast in Konoha village, Bai Mingyu and Uchiha Izumi would have died in her hands long ago even if they had 10 lives. However, this suspicion is just Bai Mingyu's unilateral speculation. There is no evidence to prove that the blonde female ninja is the two Yukido. It would be better to leave things like investigating their identities to those Konoha ninjas. Soon, there was another strange noise in the woods. Bai Mingyu and the others immediately stood up and stared nervously at the source of the sound. The next moment, Teacher Sengyuan and others appeared on the tree trunk. When they saw the children below, they immediately fell down. Quan, Baiyu, Hua, are you okay? As soon as Teacher Sengyuan asked, his eyes fell on Bai Mingyu. How should I put it? There were mottled blood stains all over the body, there were many burn marks on the clothes, and there were some unwiped blood stains on the face. It didn't look like he was okay. Of course, Bai Mingyu only looked embarrassed on the outside. After such a long time, the place burned by the rat-tail ball jade had already begun to heal, and the wound stopped bleeding. However, the blood stains that had flowed out before still remained outside the body. There is no reality at all on the outside. Why are you so seriously injured? You, Teacher Mulberry, we have important information to report to you. In this forest, we found signs of ninja activities in Kumoin village. As soon as Izumi Uchiha finished speaking, several Chunin teachers all looked shocked. What's going on? Quan, please explain it quickly. After hearing the information about the appearance of ninjas in Kumogakure village reported by Izumi, many Chunin teachers quickly became nervous. While sending people to notify other teams in the exercise to withdraw immediately, they rushed to the Hokage Tower to report to the third Hokage. It was originally scheduled to continue. The 2-day survival exercise ended prematurely. The third Hokage immediately ordered to temporarily mobilize Jonin from the village to form a team and go to the Death Forest to respond. While evacuating the children, they went to the location mentioned by Izumi Uchiha to investigate the situation. However, the ninja team from Union Village had already disappeared without a trace after their whereabouts were exposed. Konoha's Jonin and Anbu searched the Death Forest for a whole day, but still found nothing. They only found some traces of the battle left at the scene, and through analysis, they deduced the battle situation at that time. However, these analyses cannot be used as conclusive evidence to confirm that the ninjas who appeared in the Death Forest came from Kumoin village. That's the general situation. Because the identity of the other party cannot be 100% confirmed, we can only target Union Village for the time being. The Anbu will further investigate the specific situation. This is a report of all current investigation results. Naruto Building, Naruto Office. Kakashi Hatake, dressed in an Anbu uniform, placed a scroll on his desk. The third Hokage held his pipe in his mouth and glanced over it, as the cloud-hidden village because of the previous incident with the Hyuga clan. They have been coveting the Hyuga clan's Byakugan blood for a long time. This time, their well-planned conspiracy was foiled and they were forced to sign a peace treaty. The Raikage must be very unwilling to make concessions. If it were him, he would definitely not give up. It is a reasonable decision to continue sending people to infiltrate the investigation. Even if possible, we will find a way to kill the culprit who ruined this conspiracy. What? Suddenly, the third Hokage saw a name on the scroll. Asakawa Hakua. Why is he also related to this incident? The ninja school organized an exercise in the Death Forest today. The traces of these Kumo ninjas were first discovered by a team composed of Asakawa Shiroha, Uchiha Izumi, and Inuzuka Hana, and Kakashi hesitated for a moment before continuing. And at the scene of the incident, we found a lot of traces of fighting. Judging from the deduction results, the fighting situation at that time was very intense. Oh, the third Hokage was stunned for a moment, crossed his hands to support his chin, and murmured to himself, is this an assassination attempt against Asakawa Shiroha? No, judging from the situation at the scene, it was more like an accidental encounter. Kakashi shook his head and said in a very calm voice, after the incident of the Hyuga clan happened, we blocked the news immediately and strictly prohibited the spread of what happened that day. I think no matter how intrigued the Hyuga clan is within the clan, you won't reveal a child's information to a ninja village in an enemy country. After a pause, he added, compared with the purpose of infiltrating the hidden cloud village into Konoha, I personally think that what deserves more attention is how Asakawa Shiroha and the other 3 ninja students escaped from the hands of the Kumo ninja. Judging from the traces left behind, the opponent is likely to have a strong Junin level. Junin, Konoha Hospital. Bai Mingyu was lying on the hospital bed on the 3rd floor, looking up at the sky through the window. After coming out of the Death Forest, he, Uchiha Izumi and others were immediately sent to the hospital. The injuries of Izumi and Inuzuka Hana were not serious, and they were only bandaged briefly. Bai Mingyu was rushed to the emergency room. The medical ninja looked at him covered in blood and thought he might die at any time. He quickly mobilized several elite medical ninjas to come, only to find that his injuries were much lighter than imagined. The medical ninja was also surprised by this, and could only attribute the reason to good luck, as he happened to avoid the frontal impact of the ninjutsu at the last moment. But for the sake of safety, Bai Mingyu was wrapped up like a mummy, put on a plaster, and said he would stay in the hospital for observation for a few days. The ninjas of Kumogakure should not have the guts to attack Konoha Hospital. Bai Mingyu was counting the clouds in the sky boredly, when he heard a small click behind him. But the door to the ward was pushed open from the outside. 2 familiar figures appeared at the door, one with black hair and one with brown hair. They were 2 girls, Izumi Uchiha and Hana Inuzuka. Uchiha Izumi's arm was also wrapped with a bandage, and his face looked a little pale. After entering the door, he waved with a smile. White Feather-kun, we are here to see you, are you okay? After saying that, Quan naturally sat on the hospital bed opposite and patted the soft sheets. I was really scared to death before. I thought we were dead. Yes, I heard that the Anbu has confirmed that the person coming may have the strength of a Jonin level. I didn't expect to encounter such a powerful enemy in an exercise. Inuzuka Hana also had lingering fears. Speaking of which, I haven't had time to thank you. I'm sorry, Mr. Baiyu. Uchiha Izumi clasped his hands together and said apologetically. Inuzuka Hana was also a little embarrassed. We're all teammates in the same team, so what's the point of saying thank you? By the way, what's going on with Yun Ninja? I guess they haven't been caught. Bai Mingyu looked at Shang Quan, a little curious about what other changes had taken place after they left. Yukito, the two Jinchuriki of Cloud Hidden Village, personally led a team to sneak into Konoha village. This plot did not happen at all in the original work. He suspected that it might be a chain reaction caused by the Hinata incident. Uchiha Izumi shook his head. I don't know. This kind of thing is left to the Junin in the village. We ninja students who have not graduated yet are not qualified to participate. After chatting for a while, the nurse came in to change Bai Mingyu's dressing. Uchiha Izumi and Inuzuka Hana found an excuse to get up and leave. At night, sunset westward, a sound of footsteps sounded in the corridor again. After a while, the door of the ward was violently knocked open, and two familiar short figures rushed in shouting. One had red hair and the other had yellow hair. They were none other than Shanglu and Naruto. As soon as he saw the scene in the ward, Naruto immediately shouted, "Brother Baiyu, why are you injured like this?" Shang Liao was also startled for a moment, and looked at it with his mouth wide open for a while, then walked forward blankly, carefully touched the bandage on Bai Mingyu's body, and asked nervously, "Brother Baiyu, you are bandaged like this, it must hurt a lot." Bai Mingyu spent a lot of time and finally convinced the two little guys that he only looked a little embarrassed on the outside, but in fact his injuries were not serious. By the way, how did you know that I was hospitalized? It's Mom. Shang Ling and Naruto looked at each other and replied, "Tonight I went to find Naruto and Brother Baiyu to come home for dinner, but I never saw you come back. My mother only found out after she went to Granny Senju to ask. Mom also came with us about what happened this morning, and she should be talking to the medical ninja downstairs now." At this point, Shanglu seemed to suddenly remember something and took off a small bag from behind. Unwrapped it, there was a steaming light blue lunch box inside. Now, these meals were prepared by my mother at home. They are still hot. Brother Baiyu, please eat them quickly. Naruto looked around and took the fruit basket on the table. Then let me help Brother Baiyu peel an apple. I can peel apples very well. Kaoru looked at Naruto suspiciously. A minute later, after seeing the pitted half of the apple in Naruto's hand, Shangling finally couldn't help but reached out and grabbed the fruit knife, muttering, "If you don't know how to peel it, don't peel it. Really, good apples are all good. I was ruined by you, how can I let Brother Baiyu eat me like this?" Looking at the half piece of apple that looked like it had been gnawed by a dog, Naruto was also a little embarrassed. He scratched his head and said, "Then I'll go buy ramen for Brother Baiyu. Uncle Yeal's ramen can cure illnesses. Every time I had a fever or cold, I would just eat a bowl of hot ramen and my illness would be cured. Everything is fine. It's because you don't have money to buy medicine. Just grit your teeth and get through it." The corner of Bai Mingyu's mouth twitched. If Ichiraku ramen can really cure all diseases, then there is no need to open Konoha Hospital, unless there is still a possibility that Uncle Ichiraku's real name is Otsutsuki Ichiraku. Shang Ling also had a look of disbelief and looked at Naruto suspiciously. "You're lying. How could such a thing be possible? In this situation, Brother Baiyu should take medicine according to the instructions of the medical ninja." "Okay, since you don't believe me, I'll buy it now." Naruto has always had a reckless temperament, and as soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and ran out. Shang Ling quickly wanted to call him to stop him. Bai Mingyu stretched out his hand to stop him, and smiled helplessly. "Forget it, let him go. His injury was not serious to begin with, and Naruto had good intentions. I am afraid that for him, Ichiraku ramen is the most delicious thing in the world." Not long after, Naruto came back with a large bag of small loaves, filled with cup noodles of various flavors bought from Ichiraku Ramen House. But in the end, Bai Mingyu and Xiong Lian only ate a little of these ramen, and most of the rest went into Naruto's stomach. After having a full meal and wine, Naruto patted his bulging belly and said with a satisfied look on his face, "One raku ramen is indeed the most delicious thing in the world." A week later, in the ward, "Well, here it is for you." With a crisp voice, Uchiha Izumi stretched out his hand, dragging a peeled apple in his palm. The girl also held one in her hand, stuttering and said, "According to what the medical ninja said, wait for today's examination. In the past, if it was nothing serious, you could be discharged." "Thank you." Bai Mingyu took the apple, and Naruto next to him came up eagerly. "Sister Quan, I want to eat the apple too." "If you want to eat it, peel it yourself, but I don't have time to peel it for you." Quan snorted. Just cut it yourself." Naruto made a face and ran out to wash the apples. Quan turned his head and watched the golden figure run away. He turned around and said casually, "Well, Mr. Bai Yu, do you still remember what I asked you to do before?" Bai Mingyu was slightly startled and swallowed a piece of apple in his mouth. "You mean? Please, compete with me seriously." Quan's expression became solemn and he said straightforwardly. Before the start of this survival exercise, Quan once asked Bai Mingyu to compete with her after the exercise. However, due to the sudden appearance of Yun Ren, the survival exercise was suspended, and the conditions of this agreement were naturally not established. And Quan now takes the initiative to bring it up. Bai Mingyu paused while chewing the apple and hesitated. "Okay, if you really expect it so, then let's have a fight. The time and place are up to you. Even though Izumi's Sharingan hasn't opened yet, there's really no point in fighting her. If it was Uchiha Itachi, he would be a very good opponent, perfect for honing the various ninjutsu he had learned during this period, as well as the sixth form of the Navy and Soda Shirayuki's ice escape abilities." But since Quan made such a solemn request out of help, Bai Mingyu was embarrassed not to agree. Just as he was thinking about whether to let me down, I heard Uchiha Izumi say, "If you want to let me win, there's no need. It's just a competition, and I can still afford to lose." "Okay, as you wish." That afternoon, Bai Mingyu's test results came out. As expected, all indicators had returned to healthy levels. Bai Mingyu quickly completed the discharge procedures and left Konoha Hospital. Together with Uchiha Izumi, we arrived at the forest training ground on the north side of Konoha. "Bai Yu-kun, do you really not need to take off the burden on your body?" Uchiha Quan formed a seal of opposition and looked at Bai Mingyu with some hesitation and asked. "Need not. If he takes off his burden now, I'm afraid he won't be able to react at all." Bai Mingyu added, "When you open the Sharingan, I will take off my burden and fight you with all my strength, but let's take action now. I will use all my strength in this state. If I take it lightly, I can fight you at any time. They will all fail." He reached back and made a knife-drawing motion, and Soda Shirayuki appeared in his hand. In order to prevent Soda Shirayuki's frequent appearance from alerting others, he specially found a blacksmith to make a knife exactly like Soda Shirayuki's. He usually carried it on his back, but when he drew the knife, he unknowingly switched it to the Soda Shirayuki in the system backpack. Snow. Uchiha Izumi also took a deep breath. His waist sank, and the bright black kunai was clenched in his palm. It's about to happen. The next moment, the body rushes forward. The art of water escape and chaotic waves, Bai Mingyu threw a ninjutsu over first. The second before he was hit by the water wave, Uchiha Izumi's figure shook, and suddenly turned into two, moving to both sides, and then each threw the kunai in his hand. Bai Mingyu slightly dodged this level of shuriken throwing technique, and his keen eyes captured the transparent silk thread tied to the back end of the kunai. Using silk threads to arbitrarily switch the direction of movement of kunai and shurikens, causing strikes at multiple angles, is a method close to trickery but more flexible than simply relying on collision steering. Quan had used this method before when he fought against the two Yumu people, but the strength gap between the two sides was too large and it didn't work. Instantly guessing Quan's plan, Bai Mingyu pretended not to know and waved his blade. The first dance of the white moon. The huge frozen field was constructed in just a few seconds, covering the surrounding world with a radius of 10 meters. The sudden chill made Uchiha Izumi shiver all over, as if he had seen some incredible scene, and murmured, "Ice and snow release technique Shiroi-kun, you were really hiding your strength, you actually have the ability to do this kind of ninjutsu." Bai Mingyu had used his ice escape ability before in the Forest of Death, but at that time it was just a glimpse. But now, Uchiha Izumi finally saw the entire frozen realm clearly, and after the initial shock, he quickly calmed down. He quickly stepped back, and at the same time took out kunai and shurikens from his ninja bag and threw them out. In the blink of an eye, dozens of transparent silk threads were connected between the two of them, and many kunai passed through them. The big tree behind Bai Mingyu turned around with the strength of the silk thread, and was tied tightly to the trunk. Shuriken and windmill 3 no. One great sword. Quan's hands pulled quickly. Those transparent silk threads seemed to be alive, shrinking rapidly to form a large invisible net, which attacked Bai Mingyu from all directions in an instant, immediately bound his limbs and tied them into a ball of rice dumplings. Quan curled his lips and quickly formed a seal, fire escape fireball technique. Bound by these threads, Bai Mingyu could not escape and was immediately swallowed up by a ball of flames. Bai Yu-kun, are you okay? Quan stared nervously into the flames, his hands stretched out, as if he was ready to withdraw the seal at any time. At this time, a thin sizzling sound was heard, and a puff of white water vapor evaporated from the flame, which quickly turned into smoke and dispersed. This is water body. Before Quan could react, there was a sudden sound of wind, and a faint voice came from behind, blow fire pong. Pong. The rapid wind pressure burst out, and Quan's body flew out like a kite with a broken string, and threw himself into the flame ball of the fireball. Under the strong wind pressure, the flame ball fell apart, and the rolled-up heat wave spread out in all directions. Countless sparks crackled on the tree stump, showing charred black spots. After a successful blow, Bai Mingyu frowned, feeling something was wrong. The next moment, Quan's flying body turned into a log with a bang. Substitution. When was it used? Bai Mingyu glanced around and saw no one in front, back, left or right. Just as he was about to look up at the tree trunk above, the soil beneath his feet suddenly opened up, and a slender hand stretched out from the soil and suddenly grabbed Bai Mingyu. Calf. Tuden heart beheading technique. Bai Mingyu was caught off guard and was caught by Quan, and he immediately pulled him down under the soil. He quickly kicked Quan's hand twice, then he turned over and jumped up, bouncing away. Quan also emerged from the ground, facing Bai Mingyu from afar, panting continuously. The release of the series of combo skills just now obviously consumed a lot of money. Whether it is the fireball of fire release or the inner beheading technique of earth release, they are all sea-level ninjutsu, which ordinary genin may not be able to master. It is already very difficult for Izumi Uchiha to learn it as a ninja student. And by choosing the right time to use it in actual combat, this combat awareness has surpassed most students. If Izumi Uchiha like this were to fight against Hyuga Ryota, who was ranked number 1 this year, it would be hard to say whether he would win or lose. It's a bit interesting. Bai Mingyu's mouth curved slightly, and his eyes looking at Uchiha Izumi became cautious. As expected of the Uchiha clan. Because this family had been wiped out at the beginning of the original plot and almost only acted as a backdrop from beginning to end. Bai Mingyu once believed that except for the main characters of Madara, Itachi, Shisui and Sasuke, the Uchiha clan, the other clan members are all unknown sidekicks, and their strength is not worth mentioning. But now it seems that Uchiha Izumi's talent is definitely not inferior to any Uchiha genius, perhaps with cheaters like Itachi and Obito. There is no comparison between people, but the consciousness and strength shown just now are no less than Sasuke in later generations. Even more than that, Sasuke, who had just graduated from the ninja school, was probably at Izumi's current level. Quan is only 8 years old now and has greater potential for growth. This strength is enough to attract Bai Mingyu's attention. In the battle just now, he only used a few water escape moves and blowing fire palm, which did not consume much. If he directly relied on Soda Shirayuki's frozen field to crush him, he would be able to defeat Izumi, who is currently over chakra consuming, with almost no effort. However, careful, I'm about to get in. Bai Mingyu flicked his wrist and calmly replaced Shubaishui with another long knife of a similar shape. He leaned forward suddenly and started the Navy 6 style shave. The next moment, 2 figures intertwined. Bang bang. The fire flickered out. In the forest, 2 figures holding kunai ran quickly, clashing with each other from time to time, throwing shurikens and kunai, with a ping-pong-pong collision sound, and dazzling sparks colliding in midair. Soon, the nearby trees were covered with various ninja tools and were riddled with holes. Suddenly, a huge wind demon shuriken appeared in Bai Mingyu's hand. He raised his hand and waved it vigorously, spinning like a windmill and flying out. Along the way, it sliced through several trees as thick as a bowl, and cut through the air to the other side. Uchiha sprang on one side. Faced with the sudden crisis, Uchiha Izumi gritted his teeth and threw a kunai while retreating to dispel the momentum of the Fuma shuriken. After taking 6 or 7 steps back, I touched it again and found that the bottom of the ninja tool bag had been reached. In desperation, Izumi suddenly jumped to the side, and was struck by the Fuma shuriken close to the end of his hair. Then he immediately turned over and jumped up. He picked up a kunai from the ground and parried the coming back Fuma shuriken. The impact of the Fuma shuriken slowed down a bit, and Izumi immediately grabbed the buckle in the middle, pulled the shuriken down, and inserted it heavily into the ground. Hoo-hoo. Quan was exhausted after doing all this. Bai Mingyu did not take advantage of this opportunity to attack. Instead, he breathed slightly for a few seconds and slowly regained his momentum. Let's call it a tie this time. I don't have enough energy. After hearing this, Quan showed a stubborn look on his face, pursed his lips and looked at Bai Mingyu for a while, then nodded with difficulty and said, "Okay, next time I will let you take off the burden." As soon as he put down the kunai, Uchiha swayed and almost fell to the ground. Bai Mingyu subconsciously jumped forward, came to Quan, stretched out his hand to help him. "Are you okay?" He was indeed running out of energy. Carrying a 30-kilogram weight-bearing vest had almost reached his limit, but he still didn't have the strength to walk. But Quan was really exhausted. Not only was his chakra exhausted, but his whole body had also fallen into a state of deprivation. If you leave it here and leave it alone, you might faint immediately. It's okay. Quan shook his head, staggered to the nearby tree stump and sat down. He picked up the water glass and took a few sips, silently adjusting his breathing. This battle was more intense than the two expected. Regardless of the outcome, the experience gained in the process is precious. Combat awareness, combat strategies, on-the-spot responses, and even the body's muscle memory cannot be obtained through ordinary training, but can only be mastered in actual combat that is infinitely close to reality. At the same time, some flaws in combat are difficult to detect at ordinary times and can only be exposed in actual combat. Facing an enemy who really wants to kill you, any little flaw may be fatal. Not only Quan sat there silently comprehending. Bai Mingyu also held Shu Baishui with both hands, leaning against a tree trunk, closing his eyes, recalling the scenes from the previous battle. My skill proficiency in actual combat seems to be much higher than when I practice on my own. Hiss. A slight moan came. What's wrong? Bai Mingyu woke up from his thoughts and looked back at Izumi Uchiha, who was gently rubbing his temples with his knuckles, with a slightly unnatural expression on his face. "It's okay, but my eyes hurt a little, maybe from staring just now. Looking around, my eyes are a little dry and I just need to rest for a while." Bai Mingyu frowned secretly and said nothing. Could it be that he is about to open the Sharingan? In terms of setting, the Sharingan must be stimulated to a certain extent before it can open, and this stimulation is often a matter of life and death, such as witnessing the death of one's parents, brothers, and friends. At this time, the Uchiha people's brain's special chakra will flow out and reflect to the optic nerve, causing changes in the eyes, which is commonly known as eye opening. However, the close friend of the hand blade is the standard opening of the Mangekyo Sharingan. If it is an ordinary Sharingan, it does not need such strong stimulation. For example, Obito Uchiha was unable to open his Sharingan when he was young. Later, because he witnessed his good friend Kakashi being injured while trying to save himself, he opened the Sharingan directly to the second Magatama. Then, after witnessing Lin's death, he opened the Mangekyo in one breath. In the entire Uchiha clan, which is known for its cheating, it is also a rare cheat. It can be seen that the difficulty of opening the Sharingan eye also varies from person to person. Since you are tired, go back and rest early. Let's stop here today. After Bai Mingyu finished speaking, Quan was slightly startled, then nodded and said, "Okay, let's continue tomorrow." Tomorrow. Bai Mingyu hesitated for a moment and looked at the distant horizon, where the setting sun was emitting a dark red afterglow. "I'm sorry, I may not be able to continue to be your sparring partner tomorrow." Quan was startled, stopped rubbing his eyes, and looked over with doubt. Bai Mingyu didn't show off, and said straightforwardly, I am going to apply to the school to graduate early. What? Quan was stunned for a moment, and after a few seconds, he stood up suddenly, are you kidding me? We are only 2 years away from the graduation exam. The academic system of ninja schools is not fixed. During the Third Ninja World War, when Junin and Chunin were severely depleted, a large number of children had to enter school early. After rapid training, they were awarded the title of genin and put into the battlefield. At that time, there were often an example of graduating from a ninja school in 2 years of accelerated training. In the peace period after World War III, there was no pressure from war, and the educational duration of ninja schools was lengthened accordingly, usually between 4 and 6 years. Starting from the 4th year, the ninjutsu and cultural courses have basically been taught, and students can submit applications to the school for the graduation exam based on their personal wishes. Those who pass will obtain genin qualifications and be organized into teams led by various mid-junin to perform various ninja tasks. Those who fail the assessment will be sent back to continue their studies and wait for the next batch of graduation assessments in June next year. Even those children from big families often submit applications to school after 4 or 5 years. After all, by this time, as long as their talents are not too bad, most people already have the strength to be genin. Itachi is an exception. He is the only special case who graduated from the ninja school in just 1 year. He became a genin at the age of 7, which was rare even in wartime. But Bai Mingyu, it seems that it has not been more than half a year since he entered the ninja school. It's all calculated, and including the week of recuperation in the hospital this time, it's only been 4 or 5 months. In such a short period of time, even a genius like Itachi wouldn't be able to master everything taught in the ninja school. Mr. Bai Yu, you really don't need to think about it anymore. Uchiha Quan looked at Bai Mingyu a little nervously. Bai Mingyu smiled. This decision was not an impromptu decision, but the result of his careful consideration. There are only so many things taught in ninja schools. Although there are many cultural courses, the requirements for these aspects are not high. If you think about how even a scumbag like Naruto could successfully pass the graduation exam and later the written part of the Chunin exam, you can see how rigorous the ninja school's assessment of cultural courses is. For Bai Mingyu, except for the 2 courses of ninja history and cryptography, which are a bit new, the other subjects are almost at the level of mathematics and physics courses in middle and high schools. Although they are a bit confusing at first glance, as long as you spend a little time you can control everything with your mind. Not to mention ninjutsu. He has long mastered the 3-body technique, which is a reserved item for the graduation examination. And in the past few months, he also went through all the ninjutsu stored in the ninja school library, eliminating the 3 elements of fire, earth, and wind that were not in line with his own attributes, leaving only those that were useful to him. Those ninjutsu scrolls have been copied down with pen and paper and practiced diligently. If we say that in the Hinata incident 2 months ago, Bai Mingyu relied on Sota Shirayuki's ice and snow ability to defeat the Chunin of Kumogakure village by surprise. So now, even without Sota Shirayuki, he could rely on his taijutsu and the ninjutsu he had mastered to fight the Chunin, and finally find an opening to defeat him. Months of weight-bearing training and practical exercises have brought about comprehensive strength improvements. Therefore, it no longer makes much sense to stay in the ninja school. Of course, there are pros and cons to applying to graduate early. The advantage is that you can enter the ninja world in advance, and you can learn a lot by following a strong leader like Kakashi in Class 7 in the future. Whether it is ninjutsu or other ninja-related qualities, one-on-one targeted teaching can definitely improve the efficiency much more efficiently than in a ninja school. Moreover, the refresh locations of many treasure chests are outside Konoha village, and there is no way to get them without leaving the village. The disadvantage is that it will attract the attention of interested people. Especially Lao Yin and Danzo. If you are targeted by this guy, it will be a very troublesome thing. Bai Mingyu said a few words of his thoughts casually, as an explanation to this Uchiha girl with whom he had a good relationship, and by the way, he said goodbye. If I really graduate early, I'm afraid there will be very few opportunities to see each other again in the future. Uchiha Izumi was silent for a while, looked at Bai Mingyu hesitantly, and said, "What you said seems to make sense. If this is the case, then I should also apply for early graduation." "You sure?" Bai Mingyu raised his eyebrows. According to the normal plot, Uchiha Izumi should leave the ninja school after 2 to 3 years, and then 4 years later in Konoha 56, he will suffer annihilation together with the entire Uchiha clan, and die in Obito and under Itachi's sword. If I graduate early now, although it is only a small change, there is no guarantee that it will not cause a butterfly effect. Moreover, even if he had 4 years of growth time, Uchiha Izumi would not be able to grow to the point where he could compete with a strong cage-level person. If the outcome was death, then instead of entering the dangerous industry of ninjas with a high mortality rate in advance, it would be better to stay in the ninja school and have a few more carefree days. Well, it's decided. After saying the words, Quan's expression quickly became relaxed, and he looked at Bai Mingyu firmly with a pair of black eyes. I know that both you and Mr. Weasel are geniuses beyond ordinary people. In terms of talent, I can't compare to you, but precisely because of this, if I don't put in more effort, I will always be left behind by you. That kind of result is something I don't want to see. She is obviously a weak girl, but is she as competitive as a boy? However, in the world of Naruto, there is really no difference between male and female ninjas, and the mortality rate is very high. Bai Mingyu somewhat understood Quan's choice. However, if it weren't for the existence of the treasure box system like a genius, he would probably be living in a corner of Konoha, waiting to die, as originally expected. Simply comparing the qualifications for practicing ninjutsu, Bai Mingyu's body may not be as good as Quan, who has the blood of the Uchiha clan. Well, now that you have made your decision, work hard towards this goal. I believe you will become an excellent ninja. The premise is that if you can survive the Uchiha genocide incident. Bai Mingyu added this sentence silently in his heart. That night, on the dining table at Xiangling's house. Why do you want to apply for graduation? Uzumaki Miya and Xiangping looked at each other and said with surprise on their faces. There are established procedures for graduating early. Generally speaking, the parents of the students need to apply to the ninja school and provide written explanations, and then the application can finally take effect after being reviewed and approved by the school. Bai Mingyu's body is that of an orphan, his parents are dead, so he plans to ask Uzumaki Miya to help fill out the application form. Yes, I have learned all the things taught in the ninja school. So I want to graduate as soon as possible and get the opportunity to learn more ninjutsu. Even if that's the case, it's too early. Uzumaki Miya was worried. Although she didn't understand the academic structure of the ninja school, she also knew that it had only been 5 months since Bai Mingyu entered school, which was too short a time. If you graduate early without sufficient strength, you may face the risk of losing your life. Especially since Bai Mingyu himself is an orphan, both his parents are dead. If the remaining child is killed by the enemy, then this bloodline will really be extinct. And Maya, don't worry, I know what's going on. Bai Mingyu saw Uzumaki Miya's concerns, smiled, and comforted him in a relaxed tone. Xiangling also held his chin with both hands and said in support, Yes, Mom, Brother Bai Yu is very powerful. When we were in the country of grass, those bandits were defeated by Brother Bai Yu alone. And a few days ago, Bai Yu I heard Granny Senju said that the group of spies from other villages that my brother and the others met in the forest were also very powerful ninjas, and they were driven away by Brother Bai Yu. What drove you away and you forgot who was lying in the hospital for a whole week? Uzumaki Miya poked Xianglian's little head with her finger, sighed helplessly, looked at Bai Mingyu and said, Bai Yu, Auntie doesn't understand ninja things, but we were favored by your parents back then, and now Asakawa-san and sister Huime is gone, so I will naturally be responsible for you. Graduating early is of great importance. I think we should listen to the opinions of professional ninjas. Let's do this. I will discuss it with Granny Senju tomorrow before making a decision. Quote. Grandma Kionju is the old Senju clan member named Kionju Taohua. This old woman is 7 or 8 years older than the third-generation Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen. When Konoha village was first established, she followed the first and second-generation Hokage to fight. She is the only remaining old man among that generation of ninjas. Because of her relationship as a disciple, she became very close to the Uzumaki family, and Uzumaki Miya often visited them with fruits. Bai Mingyu estimated that further words would not change the outcome, so he had no choice but to nod in agreement. Prepare to wait for Uzumaki Miya to finish asking Senju Granny before making a decision based on the situation. That night, an uninvited guest came to the third Hokage's house. It's Master Taohua. What a rare visitor. Please take a seat. The third Hokage was wearing loose casual clothes, slowly poured a cup of tea, pushed it in front of Senju Momo, then sat on the sofa opposite with his hands clasped. Come over so late, what can I do? Sarutobi, do you remember the child who came here with Miya and the others? The one named Asakawa Hakua. Senju Muka went straight to the point. The third Hokage was startled for a moment, stroked the goatee on his chin, slowly picked up a cup of tea from the table, put it to his mouth and took a sip, then said slowly, of course I remember, what's the matter? That kid wants to apply for early graduation. In advance. The third Hokage's hand holding the tea trembled, and he looked up to the opposite side in astonishment. Are you saying that starting from the day he entered Konoha, that child only stayed in the village for less than half a year? Such a short time. Is the news that he is about to apply for graduation reliable? That girl Meiya told me personally, and this request was made by the child himself. You should have more information about him. 3 generations of Hokage were silent. After pondering for a moment, he got up and walked to the bookshelf, rummaged for a while, and returned to the sofa with a set of scrolls. This is the investigation information sent back by the Anbu, as well as some information that I arranged for Kakashi to observe and record in secret. If Momoka-sama is interested, you may wish to open it and take a look. Senju Momo opened the scroll and looked at it with a look of shock on her face. This child, orphans from the land of grass. The orphan of the Shui Wuyu clan recently awakened to the ice escape blood succession limit. He once killed dozens of bandits independently. On the 9th day after arriving in Konoha, he accidentally encountered the plan of the Hidden Cloud village to kidnap the legitimate son of the Hyuga clan. He defeated the Kumo ninja and led to the failure of the conspiracy of the Kingdom of Thunder. A few days ago, the whereabouts of the ninja from another village were discovered during a survival exercise organized by the ninja school. Together with 2 ninja student teammates, they engaged in an encounter with the opponent. The specific situation of the battle was unknown. In the end, they retreated with injuries. There is a suspected Jonin-level warrior in the enemy team. A few pages contain a lot of information. This child. After all, Senju Momo is an experienced ninja of the older generation. After a brief moment of surprise, the expression on his face was replaced by a trace of doubt. Ice escape blood successor limits, could it be that the parents of this child escaped from Kurigakure village? Well, counting the days when the Minazuki clan died, the time is almost right, but if it is really the orphan of the Minazuki clan, then the Minazuki clan has ceased to exist in name only. It would be a blessing if it could continue to thrive in Konoha. The third Hokage smashed his pipe and said in a deep voice. Unlike Senju Muka, who has long since retired, the third generation is still in office and has a better understanding of the big and small things in the village. Therefore, after learning that Bai Mingyu planned to apply for graduation, he experienced the initial shock and quickly calmed down. Blood follows the limit. If you awaken this ability, you will indeed be much stronger than children of the same age. And compared to Sharingan and Byakugan, which require acquired training and growth, once the blood inheritance boundary of ice type is awakened, the improvement of strength is often more direct and faster. It only takes half a year to reach the genin standard. Not surprising. The third generation even suspected that Bai Mingyu might have awakened the ice escape before coming to Konoha, so that he could single-handedly destroy the bandit gang. But out of a desire to protect him, the Uzumaki mother and daughter helped hide this fact. So, are you planning to absorb this child into Konoha, Sarutobi? Senju Momo said pointedly, but there is one thing, I hope you don't forget. If that guy knows the identity of this child, do you think he will jump out and do some little tricks? Danzo Shimura. Although he didn't say his name, Sandai immediately guessed who that guy was. Don't worry too much, Momoka-sama. I will pay more attention to this matter. I will personally preside over Asakawa Shiroha's graduation assessment. Mr. Bai Yu. As soon as Bai Mingyu came to school that day, he heard a crisp voice behind him, and Izumi Uchiha quickly chased after him. He took out an envelope from his pocket and waved it in front of him with some pride. My graduation application has been written. How about you? How are you preparing? Izumi Uchiha was in a good mood. It was such a simple application form, but she went home and begged her parents for several days before finally getting their approval and writing it down. Like you, ready. Bai Mingyu also pulled out a piece of white paper full of words from his body and gestured. That morning, the two's graduation applications were submitted to the desk of the third Hokage through teacher Sanzono. At the same time, several other people appeared in the Hokage's office. 2 advisors in Konoha, and disciples of the second Hokage Senju Tobarama, Mito Kadoin and Kaharu. And Danzo Shimura. His current position is the assistant Hokage of Konoha village. His official duty is to assist the third Hokage in handling various matters that occur in Konoha village. He can be said to be a high-ranking position, and his power and reputation in Konoha village are deeply rooted. At this moment, this old man was wearing a loose kimono, with short gray hair, and bandages on his face and arms. There was a gloomy atmosphere about his whole body. His voice was equally gloomy. Sarutobi, my roots are now short of manpower. Last time it was just Uchiha Itachi. Are you unwilling to let go of the 2 children this time? Sorry, Danzo. The third Hokage held his pipe in one hand and said with a smile, the identities and personalities of the 2 children who applied for early graduation this time are not suitable for staying in a dark place like Gen. And among them, Shiroha Asakawa, he is a child from another village, and now is a good time to cultivate his sense of belonging to Konoha, and I have already made some arrangements for him. Asakawa Shiroha, Danzo, who caught this name, narrowed his eyes thoughtfully. Kaharu went to bed and said, Sarutobi, it seems that Uchiha Itachi applied for graduation last year. Another student applied for graduation so soon. Could it be that a new genius has appeared among this batch of students? There must be a precedent. During the war, children of this age have already gone to the battlefield, Mito Manabu said. Anyway, the topics for this graduation examination will be determined by myself, the Hokage, and presided over by me. If you are interested, you can come and take a look then. The third Hokage knocked his pipe on the table, which was the final word. Danzo said nothing more, and there was an unknown meaning in his left eye that was not covered by the bandage. In the blink of an eye, it was a week later. This morning, the third Hokage appeared on the playground of the ninja school. Bai Mingyu and Izumi stood in front of them, and there was a circle of students watching the excitement. Did you hear that Asakawa Hakua and Uchiha Izumi from the next class applied for early graduation? They seem to have just reached 2nd grade. I heard that the guy named Asakawa Shiroha is a transfer student. He just came to our Konoha ninja school a few months ago. He will graduate early in such a short time. Isn't he even more powerful than Itachi back then? Then you have to pass the assessment first. Who knows if they are trying to show off? The discussions were endless. In the crowd, Inuzuka Hana clenched her small fists and shouted at Bai Mingyu and Uchiha Izumi from a distance, Shiro Yukun, Izumi-chan, come on. Next to them, Hinata Ryota and others looked at the stage with complicated expressions. They only found out about Bai Mingyu and Kwan's application for graduation 3 days ago. Their first reaction was not to believe it. It was not until they personally acknowledged it that they finally confirmed it. But even so, Hinata Ryota still couldn't believe it. In his eyes, Bai Mingyu seemed to be the same defeated general who was defeated by him in the actual combat training on the first day he came to the ninja school. Although Izumi Uchiha has good talent, the two have competed before, and Hinata Ryota is slightly better. But now, these 2 people actually stood on this stage first, which suddenly made Hinata Ryota feel unreal. Are these 2 guys really trying to show off their strength? On the field, cough cough. The third Hokage stood with his hands behind his back, raised his hand to his chin, coughed a few times, and looked at Bai Mingyu and Izumi. You 2 little guys, are you ready? Bai Mingyu and Uchiha Izumi looked at each other and nodded in agreement. Then Izumo, Ziti, come out. Following the 3rd generation's order, 2 ninjas wearing Konoha forehead protectors who had been standing behind for a long time stood up. The divine moon comes out of the clouds, and the steel is made of iron. This pair of good friends are 2,000-year-old sidekicks who have a lot of scenes in the original work. When Naruto and his friends took part in the Chunin exam, they transformed into candidates and conducted experiments on other candidates who came to take the Chunin exam. Test and screen qualified freshmen to go to the examination venue. As for his usual responsibilities, he is mainly responsible for guarding the gate of Konoha village and handling some chores. But that was several years later. The current Kamizuki Izumo and Gangzati look to be only 16 or 17 years old. Except for being taller than the students of the ninja school, their appearance and expression are not much different from most students. Kamitsuki Izumo and Gangzati are chunin who were promoted just last year. They will test you in the next assessment. Of course, in this test, the two of them will not use their full strength. As long as you two can persist under their hands for 10 minutes, you will be considered to have successfully passed the test. Then I announce that the test has begun. As the third generation finished speaking, the atmosphere on the field immediately became tense. 2 against 2. On one side were 2 chunin. On one side are 2 ninja students who have not yet graduated from the ninja school. Judging from the number of people, they seem to be evenly matched, but the gap between ninja students and chunin is far more than just one level. But this is also the custom in ninja schools. For students who apply for early graduation, a more difficult assessment method is adopted to prevent some people from being too ambitious and leaving the ninja school before their own strength is reached, and they can easily become victims of high-level tasks. On the contrary, those students who have completed 6 years of compulsory education only need to take the basic ninjutsu gensanjutsu assessment to successfully graduate. But whether they are qualified to become ninjas is decided by the leading teacher assigned to each group. 2 children, I would like to remind you in advance that Ziti and I are good at attacking together. Although we will not show our full strength in this test, as long as you relax a little, you may be eliminated. Kamizuki Izumo held his shoulders with his hands and said calmly. Gangzati also grinned, stretched out his hand and held the handle of the weapon behind his back, making a clear clicking sound. What I want to say is the same as Izumo. Once the battle starts, it's not a joke. Baimingyu and Uchiha Izumi looked at each other and gave each other an encouraging smile. Then Baimingyu turned his head, looked at the 2 chunin opposite, and said lightly, "It's useless to talk, just do it." A moment of silence. 4 pairs of eyes looked at each other across the distance, and the battle was about to break out. The next moment, Shenyu Izumo suddenly put his hands together and quickly formed a seal. Water escape Shui Yi na Yuan. Sea-level ninjutsu is also Kamizuki Izumo's specialty ninjutsu. Different from ordinary water escape, the principle of water escape is to use chakra to create water with extremely high viscosity, and then spray it out in a large area. Once the enemy steps into the area, they will be stuck by the water and unable to move. You can effectively reduce the enemy's action range. Seeing this scene, Baimingyu and Quan jumped back in unison. It is actually not difficult to overcome the viscous effect of Sui Nanahara. Avoiding it in advance is one way, and another way to deal with it is to condense chakra on the soles of your feet so that you can move freely. But in that case, it will inevitably cause unnecessary distraction, and the opponent will discover the flaw. Moreover, Baimingyu and Izumi's chakra control has not yet reached that level. Almost at the same time as Shenyu Izumo took action, Gangzati also pulled out his weapon from behind with a click. Summon Sledgehammer. The amazing-looking giant hammer swung and hit the ground with all its strength. Pong! Amidst the huge noise, the ground was smashed into pieces, and countless rocks and earth were splashed in all directions. Baimingyu subconsciously stepped back and raised his arms to cover himself. Gangzati had already taken advantage of the cover of the smoke and rushed away quickly. Come over. Hammer. The sledgehammer made a violent sound and swept through the air. Facing the hammer that was larger than half of his body, Baimingyu did not dare to be careless. He immediately drew out the long knife from behind, and with a single stroke of the blade, a dazzling slash was struck on the face of the hammer. Sparks used the recoil to do a backflip and land on the ground, then rolled on the spot. The sledgehammer passed by and landed on Baimingyu's previous position. Very strong. Perhaps these 2 guys are indeed 2-parters in the original work, but since they can successfully pass the Chunin exam, after so many years of training, they will not be useless. As soon as he took action, he immediately grasped the situation and launched an intensive offensive after Baimingyu. On the other side, the battle between Izumi and Kamizuki Izumo also officially started. The 2 fired a powerful fireball technique at each other. 2 fireballs of almost the same size collided in the air, setting off waves of raging heat waves. The surrounding air rippled like water waves and became slightly distorted. Shuriken Jutsu. Under the cover of the shuriken, Izumi moved quickly. Fire Escape Phoenix Immortal Fire Technique. Just hearing a few bang-bang sounds, Izumi put one hand in front of his mouth in the shape of a trumpet while moving, and fireballs about the size of tennis balls were spit out from his mouth and flew towards Shenyu Izumo on the opposite side. The latter also formed a seal at the right time and sprayed out a large ball of water from his mouth, the art of escaping water and chaotic waves. Just as Bai Mingyu looked away for a second, Gang Ziti had already rushed over, and the huge hammer fell on his head. Don't look around during a battle. This is common sense as a ninja. I haven't even learned this and I still want to graduate early. As he spoke, the sledgehammer was swung into a windmill in his hand, and he rushed over like a tiger. This time, Gang Ziti's speed was a bit faster than before. Looking at this momentum, even a stone standing in front of him would be smashed into pieces with a hammer. It is difficult to dodge completely. After judging this, Bai Mingyu made a quick decision. 6-type iron block. After a soft drink, a steel-like color suddenly appeared in front of Bai Mingyu. The steel-iron sledgehammer hit him impartially, and a loud bang was heard. The next moment, Bai Mingyu seemed to be disconnected. Like a kite, it suddenly flew back. Not good. Gang Ziti's expression changed. This fight with Bai Mingyu was originally a test conducted under the instructions of the third Hokage, so he had no intention of causing any loss of life. When I saw Bai Mingyu stop dodging just now, I had tried my best to save my hand. However, the inertia of the sledgehammer was too great, and I couldn't hold back for a while. Gang Ziti knew very well how powerful his move was. Even a rock could be smashed into pieces if it were a human being, and he was still a kid from a ninja school. After such a blow, are you still alive? If you accidentally hit someone to death, it would be a big disaster, and the third generation would not let him go easily. Gang Ziti's face became extremely ugly. Quan and Shenyu Izumo also noticed the movement here. As soon as Shenyu Izumo's offensive slowed down, they both looked over here. Under the gazes of many eyes, Bai Mingyu, who was thrown away by the sledgehammer, suddenly made a splash and turned into a pool of water stains scattered on the ground. In another place a few meters away, a group of water waves condensed and formed in midair. It was Bai Mingyu. At this moment, he was rubbing his chest with one hand and coughed several times. Ahem, sure enough, it's a bit difficult to resist the Chunin's attack with an iron block. However, the strength of the sledgehammer is almost clear, and it is not much different from what was expected. If it is only to this extent, this battle should be over soon. Water substitute. Gang Ziti, who was holding a sledgehammer, had a look of shock on his face. Water stand, compared to the ordinary stand technique, adds a change in the nature of water escape. It avoids attacks by liquefying the body. The difficulty of practicing ninjutsu is only sea level, but if you want to seize the opportunity to use it in actual combat, it will test your consciousness. Not to mention, at that moment, I clearly felt the touch of hitting the entity. When did this water substitute form the seal? Gang Ziti frowned and looked at the puddle of water on the ground, with doubts in his eyes. The melon-eating crowd in the audience was even more shocked. Uchiha Izumi seems to be much stronger than before. He can actually last for so long under the Chunin. No, I would say Asakawa Hakuba is stronger. He even learned Water Avatar. He is from a civilian background. How could he have the opportunity to learn these ninjutsu? Did you learn it by yourself from those scrolls? The ninja students were discussing in a flurry, while the third Hokage narrowed his eyes, and a strange color flashed across his cloudy eyes. Bai Mingyu's Water Avatar was used everywhere. If he were an ordinary person, he would probably think that he used the Water Avatar to avoid Gang Ziti's attack. However, Sandai's eyes were venomous and he could see the difference at a glance. What's that trick that I haven't seen before? Is it the child's own invention? As a doctor of ninjutsu in Konoha and a shadow-level expert who is proficient in the 5 ninjutsu systems, Sarutobi Hiruzen has dabbled in various ninjutsu from the 5 major countries. Even if he cannot use some of them, he still understands the basic principles. But just now, he couldn't see how Bai Mingyu could block Gang Ziti's attack. Even the Earth Escape, which is famous for its defensive ability, could not achieve this level without using seals. If it's not ninjutsu, is it taijutsu? It can be said that even the most proficient taijutsu junin in the village would have a hard time resisting such a powerful hammer blow with his body. After all, no matter how hard the human body is trained, it cannot be as hard as steel. In the teaching building far away from the playground, behind a window, another pair of eyes also narrowed, and the face covered by the bandage looked gloomy. I see. Is this why Sarutobi refused to hand over these two children to me? The ice escape blood succession limit, coupled with this special ninjutsu, really can only grow better in the root. On the field, Bai Mingyu coughed a few times, waved his hand to disperse the smoke in front of him, and looked at Gangzati more than 10 meters away. He closed his eyes slightly, took a long breath, and held the handle of the long knife tightly in his palm. According to the regulations, as long as I persist under your hands for 10 minutes, I will pass the test, right? So what if I defeat you in advance within 10 minutes? What? No superfluous explanation. Bai Mingyu and Quan looked at each other in the air, nodded in agreement, and then the next second, Bai Mingyu's figure suddenly disappeared and appeared on the right side of Gangzati like a ghost. After reaching LV4 in shaving proficiency, the moving distance of this move was also greatly increased. After Bai Mingyu used it at this moment, he covered a distance of 10 meters in one step. The speed was so fast that Gangzati could not react at all. He was shaken by a sword beam in front of him. He hurriedly swung his sledgehammer to block it and backed away hastily. Bai Mingyu put his hands together and immediately formed several dazzling handprints. The art of escaping water and turbulent waves. Bai Mingyu spat out turbulent water from his mouth, and rolled it towards Shenyu Izuyun and Gangzati. As soon as he finished releasing a ninjutsu, he immediately pressed his hands on the ground, and a bolt of thunder burst out from his palm, fell on the ground, and then quickly diffusion. Thunder escapes and walks. Sea-level ninjutsu, lightning escape. There are one of the few thunder escape ninjutsus left in the ninja school library. The principle is to release thunder and lightning through both hands. If released alone, it is not a very damaging ninjutsu, but when combined with water release, it can produce unexpected effects because water can conduct electricity. For Bai Mingyu, this move is not just a combination of two ninjutsu, because his water chaos is mixed with ice crystals. In other words, this is a combined ninjutsu with the three attributes of thunder, water, and ice. In just a moment, the lightning arc burst out, and the entire water ball turned into a dazzling blue, mixed with white ice, and rushed towards the escaping Gangzati. Facing the water ball coming from behind, Gangzati instinctively waved the sledgehammer in his hand, trying to resist. However, as soon as the sledgehammer came into contact with the water ball, a lightning arc quickly spread along the hammer, and in the blink of an eye it was Gangzati's whole body was paralyzed, and then he was wrapped in a mixture of ice and water, and his whole body was swallowed up by the water ball. Zitai. Kamizuki Izumo subconsciously wanted to come and help. Izumi's hands were quick and he immediately started parallel to him. As he ran, he pulled out a large Fuma shuriken from behind and quickly threw it out. At the same time, he completed the seal, Fuma shuriken shadow windmill technique. The huge shuriken attacked Izumo Kamizuki, who subconsciously blocked it with a kunai. However, when the shuriken flew in front of him, it suddenly staggered into two. One is the body and the other is the shadow. After all, Kamizuki Izumo was a chunin and reacted very quickly. When he saw the shadow of the shuriken, he immediately used his other hand to grab the ring in the center of the shuriken. He was about to swing it and flicked away the last hand. When shuriken cloned, he heard a bang, and the second shuriken suddenly took the form of Izumi. The combination of clone and transformation techniques. The moment she appeared, Izumi pulled her arm back, like a fully stretched bowstring, and hit Shenyu Izumo in the face hard. At such a close distance, even if Shenyu Izumo wanted to avoid it, she still couldn't. Can't do it anymore. Pong. This punch directly knocked Shenyu Izumo away. Battle is over. When the water waves dispersed, Shenyu Izumo and Gangzati crawled out of the ground in disgrace, and when they wanted to continue fighting, the third Hokage who had been beside them for a long time said, "It's over here, Izumo, Zeit. There's no need to fight anymore. The fight is over." The gathered momentum instantly relaxed. Bai Mingyu and Quan breathed a sigh of relief. The melon-eating crowd also started chattering after being stunned for a while. I really didn't expect that the two of them have mastered so many ninjutsu. The combination of thunder escape and water escape, as well as the shadow windmill technique combined with the clone technique and transformation technique. It's such an unexpected tactic. If we were standing on the opposite side, I'm afraid I won't be able to hold on for a minute. After all, we are members of the Uchiha clan. Besides, those two Chunin didn't try their best. Yeah, but even so, it's pretty awesome. Hearing the discussions around them, Shenyu Izuyun and Gang Ziti looked as if they were constipated. Why didn't they try their best? At first, they really planned to be merciful, but after discovering that Bai Mingyu and Uchiha Izumi were unexpectedly difficult, the two of them had unconsciously gradually used their true strength. Except for the determination to kill the opponent, he almost used all his methods. It was under such circumstances that he was defeated by two ninja students in less than 10 minutes. When he said it, the Konoha Chunin had no place to put their faces. Therefore, the two of them could only agree with a smile. Hee hee, yes, it is indeed very powerful. In 1 or 2 years, he may surpass us. The third Hokage silently looked at the traces left by the escape technique on the ground, as well as the 4 people present. After a long while, he coughed a few times and said, Izumi Uchiha, Hakuba Asakawa, the strength of the two of you has indeed improved. Having reached the standards of genin, I declare that you have passed the examination. From tomorrow on, you two will be genin of Konoha. Yeah, a happy smile appeared on Quan's face, and he turned to Bai Mingyu and raised a hand. Bai Mingyu was stunned for a moment before he understood what she meant. The two of them exchanged palms and looked at each other with a smile. A pleasure to work with. Next, the third Hokage took advantage of the situation and preached another wave of will of fire. The ninja students present, including Uchiha Izumi, all listened with rapt attention. Only Bai Mingyu had a look of helplessness on his face. He opened his eyes wide and pretended to be listening attentively, and glanced around with his peripheral vision. His thoughts had flown to nowhere. Suddenly, a gray figure swayed across the field of vision. Danzo, are you really noticed by this guy? But with the third generation here, Danzo shouldn't be blatantly robbing people. Bai Mingyu squinted his eyes slightly. It was actually expected that Danzo came to watch this assessment. Since he decided to apply for graduation, it was impossible to bypass Danzo, who was now the Hokage's assistant. In the previous week, Bai Mingyu thought of many ways, but none of them could completely avoid this situation. In this case, the only way to show off part of his strength without exposing his trump card is to make the third generation appreciate his talents. As long as the third generation is willing to make arrangements, Danzo will definitely be unable to compete. Now it seems that the plan is quite successful. Bai Yujun. Aha! When Bai Mingyu came back from his fugue, he saw Izumi Uchiha looking at him with wide eyes. In front of him was a third-generation old man with a beard and a smile. As for the other students, they have dispersed, and only a few are still staying on the edge of the playground, looking around curiously. Asakawa Hakuba, Uchiha Izumi, congratulations again, this is a ninja forehead protector for you too. The third Hokage tied another forehead protector on Bai Mingyu's forehead and said with a smile, I hope you can inherit the will of the previous Hokage and grow into a better ninja. We will work hard. Bai Mingyu agreed, then hesitated for a moment, looked at the third Hokage and said, well, Hokage-sama, I don't know who I and Izumi's leading Jonin will be. Why, you just became a genin, are you so eager to meet your mentor Junin? The third generation held his pipe in his mouth, touched Bai Mingyu and Izumi's head because of his height, and said slowly, don't worry, I have found a suitable candidate for you to lead the Jonin team, and you will be able to see him at this time tomorrow morning. Congratulations to the host for opening the Black Iron treasure chest and obtaining Rem and other skills X1. By the small river on the west side of Konoha village. As the black light dispersed, what appeared in front of Bai Mingyu was a large figure. He is about the same height as himself and has a kawaii image with short blue hair. He is wearing a seductive maid outfit, his chest is bulging high, and his lower body is covered with white stockings. His legs are slender. It is indeed a well-made figure. And it is based on real-life proportions, and the base is even a little higher than Bai Mingyu. But what the hell is this thing found in the Black Iron treasure chest? How should I take such a big figure back with me? Bai Mingyu imagined himself walking down the street with this thing in his arms. The rate of turning around would definitely be high, and the whole of Konoha might know his name tomorrow morning. Even if I brought it back, there would be a problem because there is no place to put it in the room unless I put it on the bed. While he was holding his chin in thought, a cheerful voice came from the river embankment. Brother Baiyu, why are you here? What is this? Naruto, who was holding a paint bucket in his hand and with paint on his clothes and face, ran down from the river embankment and looked at the REM figure curiously. Bai Mingyu was stunned at first, and then looked Naruto up and down. Judging from his cat-like appearance with a painted face, he must have just returned from graffiti at Hokage Rock and was about to take a shortcut home. Naruto, is the room in your house big enough? What? Naruto scratched his head and replied in confusion, I have lived alone since I was a child. Although the room is not very big, there is still a lot of free space after cleaning. Brother Baiyu, why do you suddenly ask about this? Bai Mingyu patted Naruto on the shoulder and said with a smile, it's nothing, I just want to give you a gift. That evening, many villagers in Konoha village saw a thin golden figure carrying a girl doll that was larger than themselves, strutting all the way through the market. Even the Konoha people who are used to seeing all kinds of strong winds and waves can't help but stop and point. Look at that child, she is carrying a doll that is exactly the same as a real person. Could it be that she is taking her home to do something strange? Oh, today's children are really. HMPH, isn't that the demon fox? Hurry and stay away, be careful of getting bad luck. On the other side, Bai Mingyu flew down the river and found another treasure chest that had been refreshed in a flowerbed not far from the Nara clan's residence. This time it's a bronze treasure chest. As a flash of green light dissipated, Bai Mingyu had a piece of green stuff in his hand. It looked like a small branch broken off from a certain plant. The break was uneven, and there were even cracks from time to time when he held it in his hand. A few drops of juice flowed out from it, exuding a refreshing fragrance. Dr. Aloe Vera. A natural bandage that can treat trauma, burns, frostbite, and gradually heal necrotic cells. The price of 1 meter is as high as hundreds of thousands. It is one of the necessary props for the Regenerator's travel mission. Is this the ingredient in Gourmet Prisoner? After Bai Mingyu read the description, his eyes paused for a moment on the doctor's aloe vera in his hand. After understanding it, he turned over his hand and put it back in his backpack. For him who already owns the Lion King, the therapeutic effect of aloe vera is not that significant, but it is a good choice as a substitute. Especially when it is not appropriate to reveal the half-animal state. After letting out a breath, Bai Mingyu stood up. In the area where Konoha village is located on the map, there are no other flashing treasure chest signs. Instead, there are some scattered light spots in other places outside the village, but the distance is too far. Even if you sneak out of the village to look for them, I'm afraid the journey will take several days. Complete the low-level tasks in the village as soon as possible, and then go out to perform the tasks. Maybe you can happen to pass by the location of other treasure chests. Bai Mingyu looked up at the sky in the distance. He didn't know who from Konoha would be the Junin the third Hokage arranged for him and Izumi. Time flies to the next morning. Bai Mingyu and Izumi arrived at the playground of the ninja school early. This was the meeting place agreed in advance. Watching other students enter the classroom one by one, when the school became deserted, a tall and thin man suddenly appeared on the side of the playground and walked over. He has black hair and black eyes, a pineapple head tied up high, wearing a Konoha ninja's standard vest, and a few scars on his thin face. Are you two Shiroha Asakawa and Izumi Uchiha? I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.